and welcome to the Big 12 Mafia, College Football Mafia channel. We're glad everybody could be here with us today. Lots to get to and not a lot of time. So first off, I want to thank everybody being here on a Friday night. We know it's a difficult time sometimes for people to sort of wind down from their week, but we're hoping to have a fun show tonight. We can get some of the questions off the top of your head and sort of digest some of the news that's come out just even today. So first, let me introduce everybody. We got Mowing After Dark. We have the Wild Ute and Immaculate View. How you guys doing tonight?
Good, man. Good. Still trying to take in the view of Moen here. He busted that on us right as the show started. I'm just like, oh my gosh.
What do we got? Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
That is quite the Friday outfit. I am heartily impressed.
Our viewer count just went up 70 when you stood up, Moen. That's all I got to say.
Try and keep it professional.
I want to invite everybody to, if you're new to the channel, please subscribe. Follow us all on Twitter. Leave a comment or suggestion. Give us the thumbs up. We know how important those are. And at the end of the day, turn on those notifications. That way you know when our shows are going to come up. And we're not constantly, sending out notifications that the show is starting. You already knew about it. And we want to invite everybody that's new to do that and help us sort of continue to grow our group. So I'm just going to start off. You've got a half hour. What's at the top of your mind going into tonight and this weekend?
I think that it's everything to do with this SEC and Big Ten grouping. This decision making, this Bomber, this is bothering me a lot actually, because like we've talked about it for a long time about the SEC and the Big Ten breaking away, and this is the first shoe to drop on that. Right. It was just a matter of time. It was going to happen, but with this new, I'm going to call it the alliance, you can call it the strategic think tank group, Sankey Club with Petiti, whatever you want to call it. But basically, it's the haves and the have-nots. That's how I see this. And it's total bull crap, and I'm sick of it. And seriously, I think the Big 12, they need to see the Big 10 and the SEC as more competition and rather than just cower to them. And I feel like what I've seen today on social media is just a lot of nonsense. And I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it. Like, I mean, the Big 10 conference is a collection of good schools and stuff, but we're talking about, guys, I know you're Big Ten fans, but it's totally garbage pile how a bunch of Big Ten schools are piggybacking off Ohio State. Like, seriously, I'm sick of it. I'm sick of like the Big Ten acting like they're a cut above everybody else. And like being in the Big 12 or PAC or ACC, you're basically a cut below. You're not on par right now and everything else. And like there's so many schools in the SEC and the Big Ten that don't warrant that status. It pisses me off completely. Like there is no meritocracy here. Seriously, there's zero. And I'm so sick of it. I'm absolutely fed up with it and stuff. And this is the first shoe to drop. And the Big 12 seriously needs to figure out how they're going to reorganize this thing and be on par to beat out the Big 10 and the SEC in some way, shape, or form, because we can't be seen as second-class citizens, and that's exactly what's happened today, and I'm just fed up with it.
Yeah, you're not the only one. There's a lot of fear out there, people not understanding all the moving pieces. It's a little more detailed than people are willing to go into on Twitter. There's a lot of Twitter bosses out there that are telling everybody what they need to think about this news. We're going to dive into those details, but the frustration and anger that you're feeling now, Ute, as a BYU fan, we've felt for 50 years. So I totally understand where you're coming from, and you got my support. And I think you and I are on the same page. And we have a majority of Big 12 fans watching this show right now. Yeah, we're gravitating out to more of college football, but we want to represent our schools and our conference. And so I'm with you. I don't know what it takes. I'd send $5 to Brett Yormark if you could come up with a good plan on how to do it. But we do need to put our heads together and figure it out, because we just don't want to be left out. And I totally agree with you.
This is being left out. This is being left out. You just nailed it and everything. And there has to be this gap bridged. It's a financial gap. It's more that it's a status gap. It's an everything gap right now. And it's totally not sustainable. And as Big 12 fans, we want our teams to win football championships, basketball championships. We are at such a deficit now. The deficit's growing more. It has to be figured out. And I'm just sick of you guys. Like, you guys are Big Ten fans. I'm sick of celebrating the Big Ten, and sniffing your butts and everything. Seriously, I'm tired of it. I'm tired of it. Like, good for you guys and the SEC and everything, but seriously, I care about my school. I care about the conference we're in, and we're significantly behind right now. And we've got to fight and bridge that narrative gap and the financial gap, because that exists today, and like it needs to stop. I'm totally fed up.
Moen.
Well, I mean, you're right. You need to bridge the financial gap, and that's what it is. You're upset that you're not at the table with the Big Ten and the SEC, but that's the main reason why. The Big Ten and the SEC are going to fix bid how much they're going to pay players. And they've got twice as much money as you do, and that's the main roadblock for the Big 12 right now. The Big 12 has to figure out how to make more money. Has to. Right now you're at 31.6. The Big and the SEC are both around 60. It's 2 times. So Yormark has to come up with a way to get. The only way he's going to get to that table is if he gets you guys up to 40, 50, 60 million dollars.
Right.
Where you can all take that leap and set the price on what you're going to pay players.
I in my head is 45 to 50 million. I think is going to be the breakaway, because in 2 years the Big Ten is going to be making 70. They're going to be making 80, and that's just their media buyout. It's their payout. Right. It's not going to be anything that comes from college football playoff, or just not going to. I mean, the numbers are just staggering, the differences, and I think if some way somehow, and I have a roadmap to how that could happen. It would require basically taking the rest of what's left over for the ACC and put it in the Big 12, and then that would increase the media payout. We would hope 5, maybe 8, 10 million. If that would be a way to grow and would be a way to compete, I think that's what they need to do. This idea that they're going to throw the Big 12 and the ACC and the remnants of the Pac-12 together and have a product of value that's going to be more than what we're making now is ridiculous, because there's too much dead weight you'd be adding. Now, at the end of the day, when we talk about schools that aren't really investing in their athletics, I don't need to point out to everybody what those schools are. They already know what they are. But I know BYU and Utah are spending tens of millions of dollars to compete. We're doing everything we can with NIL. We're doing everything we can with facilities, and we are going to be there. It's just how do the rest of the conference come along and make that happen? All right, Immaculate, I'm going to give you. Well, we know Ute has to leave at the bottom of the hour, so
this is still the Ute show right now. All I'm going to say is I thought that was great. And don't worry about taking shots at Big Ten or us or at any one of us how we might be feeling, because I get it. I get that right now we can sit pretty cozy in our chairs about this whole situation and go, hey, guys, it's all going to be okay. I get it. I'm trying not to be that guy too much, because I understand like the way this has to look has got to be pretty bad. All I can say is just from a Big Ten perspective, to me, the big news in this is that Big Ten officials and SEC officials are actually willing to get into a room and talk. Like, they might end up just throwing shit at each other. Like, that's generally the case between the two conferences. Are they going to come up with the future of everything? Probably not. There's an article, Dellinger went through it, talked a little about it on Greg's show. The part that I thought that was most interesting is that Sankey was saying at the Phoenix convention that he was literally being asked, what do you in the Big Ten want in the future? Like, from all this, like, before anyone can even come up with any solutions, they're saying we kind of need to figure out what they want as like the peak. Now, I don't think that we're going to get all of it. I think that whatever they ask for, like in any negotiation, it's going to get mediated, moderated, compromised down. And from that perspective, everything they would saying, I 100% would be like, yes, you need to watch these things and worry about these things. And whatever they come back with from this meeting, maybe moderate it down a little bit. But I don't think that they're trying to actually separate. I don't think that they're trying to, leave everyone back in the dust. But are they going to look for every single freaking advantage that they can get for their schools in this future setup that we have? Yeah, they are. So, this is a step, something to watch. So, but anyway, besides that, man, I felt that. I feel it. And I get it. I mean, you guys just went through the Pac situation. You're getting loaded into the Big 12, starting to feel good about it. And then you see this. So, just the best I can say is, we have to see this play out a little before we really know what's truly going on here.
I think
So
the big
I
story.
asked, can I get this quote from Bob
Go ahead.
Johnson in real
Yeah.
quick, you? So I asked Bob, who obviously is a good contributor to the show, and he was nice enough to answer a question for me. Very simple. And then you can take over after that. This is from Bob Thompson. I asked him, what is Yormark's next move? Yormark, the conference commissioner for the Big 12. He says, clearly these two conferences have separated from the herd financially and will want to have a bigger say going forward. Anyone who didn't see this coming had their head in the sand. We've been talking about it since the show started last May. And then it says, when there was a P5, the three conferences, Pac-12, Big 12, ACC, at least had some voting power. That is gone. And this is the new P2, that's his quote, putting everyone on notice.
Yep. I mean, I don't know if you want to respond to that first.
Yeah,
I mean, this is your time right now.
I mean, I think it's pretty nice to be in the P2 right now.
Yeah.
I think it's nice and cozy to be in the P2. And it just seems mighty unfair. I get life's unfair and everything that some low-level underling schools are in the P2 making all this money. I think it's whereas a school like Utah wins the Pac-12 conference, beats up USC, and they essentially don't even have an opening there, whereas some teams have no business being in these conferences. I think it's completely unfair. I think it's absolutely unfair that you have a Rutgers, you have an Indiana, you have got a Vanderbilt in a Mississippi State in these conferences. If they're going to have such a serious advantage, they've got no merit to that advantage other than just piggybacking into a conference that they were in 25, 30 years ago. And I want to see that gone. I want to see those teams removed. If you belong there, if you can make your way into a super league or wherever this is going, then so be it. But if you don't, then you shouldn't be in it. And that's what pisses me off as a Ute fan. Hey, we won our way. We should have a chance at our championship. We should have a chance at the financial capacity to compete and not just be left behind. That's exactly what's happening right now.
So would something then like taking these conferences and taking the football out of them? Because with the Big Ten, it's not just a football conference or a basketball. It's also the BTA with the logistics buying, like they all purchase together. They combine. They do a lot more than just the sports side, and then they do have the history of playing against other sports. So the only way, I get what you're saying, but I guess you're kind of advocating maybe for pulling football out of these conferences and creating something new, because that's really the only way that can happen. I mean, I empathize with what you're saying and I feel it, but logistically it's different than just, sports leagues.
But is it? I mean, we're talking about so college football is the second most popular sport in the United States behind the NFL. I mean, if you break away football, what really changes much? You can still have the Big Ten conference, just not the football aspect.
And that's why I suggested that, because you couldn't just kick some of those schools out of the Big Ten. Like I know it's kind of falling on deaf ears, but that's just not going to happen because of all those other things I was bringing up. But I guess that's what I'm kind of bringing up is not that I think that they would ever even agree to doing that, but that's something that could be possible. Like they could do it if they would agree to it. So I don't know if maybe that's, where we're going in the future is to have some higher football league that doesn't remove these old conference connections that these schools have together. But I get it. I don't know. I don't have much more than that to say that. I don't know. How about you, Moen?
Yeah. Can I ask you a question? Do you think football players should be paid?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's what this is about. This is about getting players paid. And
Sure.
those
Well, it's a
players
lot
are
more
going to
complex than just
right,
that one.
right. But that's the main point, is coming up with the construct to pay these players.
I think the bigger story is who's not included in the room, though, Bowen.
Yeah.
Like, why couldn't Yolmark been in this discussion? Why is it Petiti and Sankey? Like,
because I'll
that's
tell you
the
right
question.
now, the reason why is because they're double the media money.
Okay, then if it's all about the media money, like,
it's going to be a portion of that media money's carved out. They're going to determine what that is. It's a fixed bid system. They're both sitting there agreeing on who's going to pay what. If the Big 12 can't afford to be in that same league, I mean, that's probably why. That's probably the same reason why Jim Phillips isn't in the room, or any of the G5 people isn't in the room. It's the top two financial media payouts are determining how much they're going to spend. If they say, okay, we're carving out a $65 million, we'll say media share to pay to all revenue generating athletes, can the Big 12 afford that?
Maybe. I mean, like,
depends what the number is, obviously.
Right, but it would seem that just with, like you mentioned, 70, 80, these escalating numbers, that,
right,
it's just a financial reality. And you're right, it's not fair. It sucks, but we have moved to this point where we have to pay players now. And this is part of what paying players is leading us to.
If it's all so my thought process, and I think your nails, Moen, it is all about the media money. It's all about paying players, the media money. So why are we even like joking ourselves about like the academic like alliances and everything? If it's all about money, what drives money? Football viewership, media contracts, butts in the seats at football games. That's what drives it all. We separate football completely. It's no longer part of the university and stuff. And so it's its own money-making machine, like the NFL, mini NFL. Was make it a meritocracy. And then like we'll have an even system where teams can actually compete.
Well, if you're really going to make things moderated, they should come up with a number, Moen. Let's just say they pick a number, make everybody who wants to be in that upper tier meet that number, or they naturally will have to take a step back. But there needs to be something in place that says what's the minimum, and then not rule out anybody.
Well, I don't think they are ruling out anybody, but
I'm just saying,
NIL still remains. You can still be competitive with NIL.
Yeah, I'm not talking about that though. We're just talking about the structure around it, right? What keeps everything moving forward. And I think the best way to do that would be to come up with a minimum number and say either you make the number or you don't, and then lean on the institutions to make up the difference.
Well, I think that's what the two are doing right now, is they're coming up with that number.
Okay, and maybe they are, right? There's a bunch of different points that was in the joint statement. Let me post the joint statement really quick. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'm just going to post the link to this one. Let me add it to our stage here. So this is from the Southeastern Conference, guys, okay? Southeastern Conference, this isn't some analyst on the outside that's making this posting. This came from the SEC. It says the SEC and Big Ten announced the formation of a joint advisory group of university presidents, chancellors, and ADs to address significant challenges facing college athletics and opportunities for the betterment of the student athlete experience. Tell me where in there does it say that Brett Yormark or the Big 12 shouldn't be there? What in those sentences, what would exclude the Big 12?
Nothing. I think, like, I'm actually taking everything they're saying at face value. Is they were asked at Phoenix, like, what do you guys want? And so they're kind of sitting together going, okay, what do we want? And then that's just going to start the conversation. And then at that point, then the Big 12 is going to come in and say, well, no, we can't do that. Because if this does, as I'm positing, empower the autonomy conference voting system to do this, the Big 12 has equal votes at that. The ACC has equal votes at that. Like, this is not the end all. And they're probably going to come with some numbers that are really going to piss people off. Like, no lie. Like, it's going to happen. But those are going to be, like, if you're sitting down in a negotiation, that's your starting point. That's your big ask. We know we're not going to get this, but if we say this, then we might get this. But if they start at this, then they're going to get this.
Right.
So
they over ask and
yeah,
fill
it's
in
just
the
a big
gap.
ask. And so, and I feel fucking horrible when I'm seeing everyone now look at this and think like, this is it, this is the end. Because I would probably be feeling the same way. But in my opinion, this is just them getting ready to figure out what are we going to say our position is, since everyone's looking at us as if we're the P2 and we are this over here. They're just kind of coming together to figure it out. And
how does this get beat by antitrust? How does it the next suit is coming from somebody, and they're gonna do a collusion thing, and they're gonna say, how can these guys be what is it, antitrust free, so they can't get sued by individual schools or people? What in this statement protects them from those lawsuits?
Well, there's no lawsuit on this because that's just a statement. They haven't actually done anything yet. It's when they come with whatever they come out of this meeting with, and when they present that, if they were to then get lowered down in those discussions and then come back and say, okay, nope, we can't deal with this, we're breaking away. Well, then now I think you're in the water of lawsuits and all that talk that you're just talking about right now. I mean, this is just officials meeting. Like, it just so happens because it's them, it's making news, and they want it to be news. They're leaking this out. They want this to have an effect. They for whatever reason, I don't know. Like, that's when you need inside information. But they're basically just coming together to decide, how are we going to start this off? What are we going to say that we want? Because we know it's going to get lowered down in the negotiations. So
I just posted the link to this, so everybody can go to it themselves. I'm not going to read the whole statement, but this fourth paragraph is the one I want to get to. The Big Ten and SEC have substantial investment in the NCAA. Really? The Big 12 doesn't? The ACC doesn't? And there is no question that the voices of our two conferences are integral to the governance of other reform efforts, and exclusion of everybody else. We recognize the similarity in our circumstances, as well as the urgency to address the common challenges we face. Nothing in this statement is proven to say that naturally that means we're going to exclude everybody else. Yeah. So how are they able to promote themselves into this position? Who gave them this power?
They're not deciding anything, though. They're just it's a lot of big talk. Like, I don't know how more to answer that. Like, there's nothing that they're saying like, this is how it is, this is what it's going to be. They're just this is like them coming into the room and puffing out their chest and acting real big. And right. This is the start. This is the start of a very big negotiation, and this is the first play in it. And I get it. I mean, it's kind of a little cringy or whatever, however one wants to say it, but it's these two big guys coming in saying, hey, this is so important to us that these two conferences that hate each other, generally speaking,
right,
are working together. So to me, it's a statement of how important the shit is and how quickly they need answers, because if they don't, House versus NCAA is going to kill everyone equally. Not even equally. It's going to kill them even more because they're going to be on the hook for even more than, say, the Big 12.
So we know friend of the show, Greg Flugar, has been covering realignment for almost 2 solid years now. His post today, I think, is very simple and concise and to the point. It's been power two with the power and influence for many years. It's not power two in regards to cutting off access to others. May that change years from now? Possibly. Advisory group power two is an attempt to tighten the circle to give better odds consensus can build around compensation. I don't know that you could say it any more clearly than that.
No, that sums it up.
Yeah. So, I mean, I get it. Like, be mad. Like, let your folks in the Big 12 know. Like, do what you got to do. But this is just this. I mean, it's not really the start. We've seen this kind of building up.
Right. And we've been warning people for a long time.
It's a step, and it's a big one, and it is very eye-opening, but it's not the end. It's not, they're not deciding anything out there that's final. Like, it's going to get voted on whatever they say.
Immaculate, what would you change your mind on, like, hey, they're not deciding anything, this isn't the end? Because like I'm curious about that, because like I've got a different view probably than you do. Like what would trigger you to think that like, hey, this is very significant, these two conferences are trying to like pull away from everybody else? Like what would you need to see to change your mind on that?
Them coming in after this is over with their recommendations, and then some word afterwards that them saying everything that we put forward was just completely thrown back in our face, or something like that, like completely denied, like it didn't make it into negotiation. Then maybe, yeah, then I might start to get a little, okay, that's not good. I don't think that's going to happen though. But if to answer your question, that's what it would be. This by itself, no. And there's really nothing you could say to make me feel that way. That's not to be like obstinate. That's just, I don't think it's that big of a deal yet. When they've come up with something from this and it gets presented, the reaction to that would be much more important than this announcement right here.
Go ahead, Moen.
Yeah, it's interesting you brought up the point. Who appointed the Big Ten and the SEC?
Yeah.
The answer is we all did. Even the Big 12. While the Big 12 was trying to poach schools out of the pack, they were in essence setting up the Big Ten to have more powered schools and more brands. We as fans have allowed this because we pushed for NIL. We pushed for athletes to be compensated. We pushed for these mega media deals for our brands. We all share some responsibility in how we got to where we got to. We can't all be innocent, and it sucks for the Big 12. I get it. I hear you. I tend to agree with Immaculate. I don't think that this is a breakaway. I think Greg put it succinctly in fewer words than I possibly could.
Right.
But I think we all have to share some responsibility, including the Big Ten, including the SEC. The Big 12 was right there to poach Pac-12 teams as well, and allow the Big Ten to pick up Oregon and Washington. So we all share some responsibility.
Yeah, I don't know about that, Mo.
I don't know about
USC. That was the
one
crux.
does not follow the other. They took
No,
USC and
you
UCLA.
took Colorado. Yes, you took Colorado though.
No, it was broken when they took USC and UCLA.
It was broken.
When Texas
It was broken,
and
but
Oklahoma left, right?
Yes,
that
but
has nothing to do with any of these other schools that you're now saying are responsible.
Okay, so the Big 12 didn't take Colorado out of the pack.
The pack was dead. Once
You don't
Washington and
know that.
Oregon left, yes, it was. Once
No.
Washington and Oregon left.
Right, but Washington and Oregon left last. Colorado left first.
Because they knew they were going to get left out. They were looking for just any place to be. They weren't going to hold up the Pac-12 by themselves.
No, but you took Colorado first, which led the chain. I'm saying nobody here is innocent. Every conference is guilty of this. The ACC is guilty of this. The Big Ten's guilty of this. The G5 shares some guilt in this. Everybody's guilty. Nobody's innocent.
Okay, obviously that's not wrong. All I'm saying is there are some that are more responsible than others.
Well,
How
sure.
about that? Okay.
Sure.
If we can agree on that, then I guess that's
we
fine.
all have to share responsibility. We all made this shit sandwich, and we're all going to have to take a bite.
Well, actually, none of us did.
Can I ask you guys a question though on that, real quick?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Okay. Look, the conferences aren't equal in this. They're just not. But would you tell the Big Ten that if Washington and Oregon come calling you saying, we want to join, should the Big Ten, should they have, like, I don't know, morally or ethically, whatever, said, sorry, we can't do that because,
No.
okay,
No.
Right. And so that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't think that there's like this active, like, attempt by these conferences to come tearing anyone apart. And I know it feels that way to people, like everything's just getting shredded apart. And it just, USC came to the Big Ten.
Right.
I mean, the Big Ten is going to look at that and go, dude, that's freaking USC. That's LA. Okay, sure. Like, it's a huge private university with great numbers, all of the above. Okay, fine, whatever. They worked out their thing with that. UCLA. The Pac is still going at that point. I honestly thought the Pac was going to get another deal. I was actually shocked that they didn't get another deal. There was another deal on the table, but some people in the Pac turned that down or whatever. There was supposed to continue on for at least another 3 years. I honestly think this was a bit inevitable and it was coming later. But, that got pushed back. To some degree, that's on the Pac. And yeah, Colorado further made it worse because I think that they were kowtowing to Deion Sanders. He didn't want to wait 3 years where all of his recruiting pipelines are in the West, where he doesn't know jack squat about anything. He wanted to be in Texas, and he wanted it now. He wanted to do it now. So Colorado just, gave whatever to the man. And I get it. I mean, that's a full-on move, a big hire. But it's just, it all just kind of worked out that way. And I just think that it was inevitable for the Pac. Like, it was happening now or it was happening 3 years from now.
Okay. Less than 2 years ago, there was an alliance, guys, between the Big Ten Conference, the Big Ten Conference, the Big Ten Conference, the Atlantic Coast Conference, and the Pac-12 before USC left. And so that was going on while the Big Ten pried away USC, that alliance and everything. So, like, the Big Ten is not. There's blood all over the Big
innocent,
Ten.
But I don't necessarily.
The Big Ten killed off the Pac-12.
They didn't really prime away.
USC
USC came to them saying, "Hey, we'd like to join." Like that. Like, so you were saying Big Ten should say no.
So when you're in an alliance with somebody, you're not supposed to steal, like their possessions, right?
Yeah, but I don't know what's going on internally in that alliance. Like, we see them do all these type of things, and it comes up with nothing. So maybe internally there's some problems. I know way back before then, there was also another, I don't want to call it an alliance, but some cooperative effort on trying to figure out where everyone in the Big 12 was going to get divided to. That shit was real. And the Pac-12 did not like what was presented to them in that, and they went and struck out on their own to try to grab the parts of the Big 12 that they wanted, which was Texas, Texas Tech, Oklahoma, and Oklahoma State on their own. And that there was an alliance going on then too. But, so this goes well back beyond just a year or two ago, though, brother. So it's just a lot of ugly business. And I get it. I don't want to come in here and be like Big Ten versus Pac, and have an argument with you. But like, USC came to them in the middle of all that. I don't know why. They just did.
The Big Ten's done very well in realignment because 2 years ago, the Big Ten had to form the alliance with the ACC and the Pac to fight off the SEC, and now they're equal footing with the SEC. So kudos to the Big Ten. But the Big Ten's the ultimate villain, too. Just saying that. They ruined the Pac. They blew up the Pac and everything. And that's why I'm saying that the Big 12 needs to wage war on the Big Ten.
Okay.
Like, it needs
the
to.
villain part's true. Like, I get that. Like, that's all subjective. And if someone wants to look at the Big Ten as a big bad villain, I get it. That's fine. That's okay. I mean, that's not really a new thing for the conference. It's always kind of been hated by everyone on the outside of it. Just, they kind of look down at everyone academically and all that shit. So I get it. But I'm just saying, there's a lot more to the story that goes a lot farther back than just the situation that happened with USC and that alliance.
Let's boil it down really quick. By the way, we're at 130 people watching us live. I appreciate everybody being here tonight. We're going to be here for 2 hours. So stick around. We're going to be doing Q&A. We're going to talk a little FSU ACC a little bit later with Danielle. And it's going to be an eventful show. So everybody, please subscribe. Follow us all on Twitter, and make sure you turn on your notifications so you know when our shows are going to be coming around. Let me get rid of that so you can see everybody's. There we go. Everybody's address. Now, do you actually have to leave?
Yeah, in about in a bit here, Bob.
Okay. All right. I'll just let you go then.
Yeah, you know what, guys? Like, I understand it. If I was a Big Ten fan, I would feel the same way as you guys. I do understand all that. It's difficult being on the other side of this, though. And like in this announcement today, it just feels like that shoe's dropping, that we knew it was going to drop, and so it stings today. So that's why we're all friends. So I mean, everyone on this panel on the show and stuff, we all like each other. We all have really high end dialogue and everything, and just like some of the emotions get a little raw.
Dude, you're good, man. I'm just real quick, and I'll give it to you, brother.
Yep.
I know a lot of people watching right now are feeling the exact same way as you, and I would happily take those blows from you just to let it out and just like let it all go, because everyone out there watching that is probably feeling the exact same way and is going with that. So personally, I got no problem. Like, whatever you're saying about the Big Ten, all that, I mean, I got no control over it as an Iowa fan. Like, I get it, man. we're just along for the ride, and we really don't have any say in the Big Ten either. So it's like, I get it, and I know we're lucky, and I feel bad, but at the same time, I'm just saying, like, okay, just sometimes a devil's advocate position a little bit, just so that it doesn't go too far. But I get it though. So you're good.
Moen, tell everybody about these gifts.
Yeah, Cleveland Rocks has gifted 5 members to the community.
Damn.
Nick Snyder, Patrick Weigel, Nitwit, Rich 12, Bama Knowles. Make sure you thank Cleveland Rocks in the chat. Cleveland Rocks, we thank you for your continued support. Awesome job.
All-star.
You are a
winner.
All right, so we got a special guest to the panel.
Who's that guy?
Everybody's prepared.
Who is
and
this
ready.
guy?
Freaking Gophers.
And let's hear from the man on the machine, the OG, Greg Flugar.
Thanks for letting me on. I appreciate it. Wild Youth, you're doing a fantastic job once again. Thank you for everything you're saying. Immaculate Moen, Mr. Nathan Brown. I just wanted to kind of when Texas and Oklahoma, when they called the SEC, it was because of what we're seeing now. The Texas and Oklahoma did not call the SEC because their life was going to be easier in winning conference championships, right? They were going, no offense to Big 12 schools that were in the Big 12 at the time, they were going into the SEC because of what they thought was going to happen, which is now. Okay? The schools that accepted Texas and Oklahoma, like your Mississippi State, your Vanderbilts, the reason why they said, yeah, come on in, you Greg Sankey, you got our support, come on in, because they knew when those schools came into the conference, eventually their value would go up. Everybody's money would go up. Mississippi did not accept Texas and Oklahoma into the conference because it was going to be easier for them to win conference championship, to win football games, right? It was all about what is going on now. Same thing. USC called the Big Ten. They wanted in. And these Big Ten schools that don't have much of a chance of winning a Big Ten football, they said, you better believe we want them in. Why? Because it was going to bring more money in to the conference to where they pay student athletes, because they all perceived that this was going to happen eventually. And that extra money might not help them in football, but it might help them in other sports. Same thing with what happened with the Big 12 just now, right? The Big 12 schools wanted Utah. They wanted Arizona. They wanted Arizona State. They wanted to survive. Nobody who just joined the Big 12 is thinking about, well, they are thinking about it because you're all good people. But the Oregon State and Washington State situation, they're not going to have the money like some of the schools that just joined the Big 12. So everybody is looking for the highest ground possible. And that's been going on for years. And it really accelerated when Texas and Oklahoma called the SEC. And then USC called the Big Ten. So it isn't like, and I know, look, people have been schools, athletic directors, boosters, they have been looking at this for years. The USC boosters are the ones that poked and prodded the athletic department to call the Big Ten because they wanted USC to make as much media money as possible. That's the straw that's been stirring the drink. So, and I understand the frustration. Look, I'm a Gopher, right? We don't have a chance to win the Big Ten championship in football. Sorry, Golden Gopher fans out there. We don't. The 300-mile radius around our campus is devoid of football players, right? But we wanted that money. We have been for every single Big Ten expansion that there's been in the conference. Every single one of them. We have supported every one. Now, does that mean that we suddenly are not Big Ten worthy because we help support Oregon, Washington, Nebraska, Michigan State back in the 50s? Of course not. No. And Indiana is a Big Ten university. They don't have much of a chance of winning a Big Ten football, right? But of course they are. They have taken the risk. They all voted for the Big Ten network. When the Big Ten network was created, 99% of the people on message boards and everywhere thought that was the biggest joke of all time. Big Ten schools were going to lose money, value, exposure, and it turned out to be a really good investment. So I'll say one more thing, and then I'll get off my whatever. Like the Ohio State Buckeyes, Michigan Wolverines, Penn State Nittany Lions. These are unbelievable football programs, right? And their advantages are not going away. They have unbelievable fan bases. They have unbelievable fans who poured all their money into, just like Utah, by the way, just like BYU, your advantages over some schools are not going away because your fan bases are spectacular. You have followings that are unbelievable. The Buckeyes and Nittany Lions in Michigan, they're not going to lose that advantage. Whatever happens in this new world, they are not going to lose their advantage over the Gophers, the Indianas, the whatever, the Purdue's. Iowa has an advantage over Minnesota. They're not going to lose that. They're not going to lose that. But the Big Ten schools who accepted all these big brand schools in, the SEC schools who accepted all these big brand schools in, they're not going to lose their potential advantage over other schools outside of the two conferences. It just isn't going to happen. Not now, anyways. That's what I needed to say. But
that's fair, Greg. That's very fair, as well said too. Yeah. Okay, so here's a thought. Okay, is that we've all moved into a direction where now it's there's no hiding it. Money is the driver of everything, and if with the lawsuits and the House case and everything else, when we're starting to pay employees, money is going to become more important for paying student athletes and NIL programs in-house, right? So money right now is more significant in college football than it ever has been, at least publicly.
Yeah.
Right? Like, so why? So in the corporate world and everything, you know, in the free market society and everything, you're trying, just like with private equity, you're trying to build the most valuable product you can. Okay. You're trying to maximize money. You're trying to maximize sales revenues. So why in the world would the Big Ten schools like in Ohio State and Michigan, why would they want to stay in a conference with other schools in the Big Ten when they could break away and make double the money? Like if it's all about the money anyway.
Yeah, they might not stay. You're right.
Well, that's exactly where this is going. And then your Minnesota Golden Gophers are going to be right here with my Utah Utes and going to be like, this is total bullcrap. Right? Like it's all moving that way because the dollar is driving everything. And that makes sense why the dollar is driving everything. But football is becoming semi-pro. And so that breakaway needs to happen to maximize money. That's just logic right there. I mean, like that's just the way it's going to flow. Ohio State's going to play Bama in the Super League and everything. And we're all going to get left behind outside of the Blue Buds. And so it's frustrating to see that happen because I think that we're at the starting point of that.
I think you could be absolutely correct. I agree with you. That could happen where the top Big Ten schools break away from the rest of the Big Ten schools. Now, there's large differences between the Big Ten and the SEC. Me and Immaculate talked about it on my show earlier. There's just a lot of disagreements all over the place when it comes to baseball schedule, when it comes to signing period. It's just there's a lot of sponsored sports. The SEC don't sponsor as many sports as the Big Ten. It's part of the Big Ten culture. Ohio State sponsors, I don't know, 35, 36, 37 schools. Ohio State doesn't want anything to do with an Alabama that only sponsors how many? 18. There's a big differences between the two conferences. But you're right. Someday the the forces of consolidation could take us even further into a super league. No question about it.
Well, yeah, and I think that we need to delineate something here. Like football players in the future for colleges, I don't think they're really going to be considered students in the future, too. Once they're considered employees, they might not even have to attend the university anymore. Like we're so far away from it being associated with a classroom setting in academics. Let's just quit calling it that and just kind of say this is semi-pro ball in the Super League. That's exactly where this is going.
Well, I great point. I don't think that's the one thing in which your Alabamas, your Ohio States, your Penn States, your Michigan, that's the one thing they agree on, though. They want to have it tied to a university. Because if it isn't tied to a university, if it isn't tied to a student having the choice of what university they go to, then we're talking about true professionalism where the student athletes, football players can be drafted, right? Mm-hmm. Wide open draft. Now it doesn't matter what location you're at, how big alumni you are and all that stuff. They don't want that. It's one of the reasons why Greg Sankey is not this great reformer. He doesn't want change. As Immaculate and Mullen has said, they don't want change because they love how they've had it all these decades. And so I don't know how successful this thing's going to be with the Big Ten and the SEC. There's major differences in these conferences. But I do agree with Mullen when he said they're trying to make it so they don't knife each other. They're trying to figure out this compensation model between the two conferences. And also remember, right now they don't have really any real authority to make any changes. This advisory thing, it's the ACC and the Big 12 still have the voting power. So,
Greg, let me ask you. So we talk about the Big 12 a lot here, right?
Yeah.
You're Brett Yormark. You've just realized that you didn't get the invitation to the ball, but you want to be in the ball really, really bad.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do?
Oh, I first of all, I think he's done an unbelievable job. I think he hit a grand slam, got up at the plate again, and hit another grand slam.
Right.
Make sure that basketball becomes, I know it's only 15, 20% of the pie, whatever.
Right.
Make sure basketball is as valuable as it possibly can in the years ahead, because Big 12 is going to be right there. I also think I don't want to sound ruthless, but I am ruthless. Look, something's going to happen with the ACC,
right?
And the Big 12 is going to pick up some pieces,
right?
And suddenly, every school in the Big 12 is going to be in a better position than the schools that aren't picked up, that are left remain in the ACC. I know it's terrible. It's not fair.
Right.
It's a little less bad to talk about that in the ACC. I mean, they did piece by piece tear apart the Big East. So,
yes.
They can't really quite claim same victim as some other conferences could.
Yeah.
There's always a bigger fish. There's always a bigger fish.
And like the money advantage, yes. I mean, that's what schools have been planning for years, to get the best money advantage. And I know it's frustrating. Wow, dude, I felt you, man. I feel you, because Utah, BYU, I feel you, because you have these massive, energized fan bases. But just the money advantage from some schools over another schools have always been there.
Sure.
Right? No offense to BYU and Utah. No offense. But if you were in the Big Ten for the last 6 decades, you would have a lot more success than some of the Big Ten schools. But, man, you still be playing this Ohio State, Michigan, Penn
Right.
State, Iowa.
Yeah.
You know, and then after losing for 30 decades, you might be moving your money into different sports so you can excel. And it's an impossible mountain to climb. So I'm gonna leave my soapbox with this. Nobody, this is gonna sound ruthless, completely unfair, but I just gotta shoot it to you straight. Everyone's trying to gain the best advantage they can, right? And I know you guys all know this. Mowing, Ohio State Buckeyes, they're not going to just go to the table and lose their advantage. The advantage that they've had because they have an incredible fan base, big stadium, alumni, just they're all in, great recruit. They're not losing that advantage. You're going to have to beat them. Iowa, big advantage over Minnesota, and they deserve it. Schools are not going to try to lose their advantage. Conferences are not going to try to lose their advantages. It just isn't how this is being evolved for decades.
Right.
It just isn't going to. The Big 12 got the advantage over the Pac-12. Looks like they're going to get the advantage over the ACC. They're not going to just give, like we've heard reports on X saying, oh, Brett Yormark, the Big 12 is going to merge with the ACC.
Yeah.
No, they're not.
We don't say that here.
Yeah, why? Because they got the advantage.
Yeah.
You've got the advantage. You've earned the advantage. The Big 12 commissioner rocked and rolled. The Big 12 were aligned. You got to give all the presidents incredible credit for that. And the fan bases show out. So that's why you have the advantage.
Very well said. Anybody have any other questions for Greg? You can stick around as long as you want, Greg. We appreciate you being here tonight. You guys did
well. I'll take off. I just wanted to. Wild Dude is absolutely correct, and his emotions are absolutely right on. It's the word frustrating is the correct word. It's frustrating. It's ruthless out there. That's all I can say.
It depends on what seat you're in.
That's right. That's right.
Well, okay, so Gophers are supposedly in this cozy seat. We're going to get whipped for the next 20 years.
Hey, Greg, I've got some intel for you here. You've got a standing invite to the Big 12 if you'd like to take it.
That's right. We're
fine.
Let's go.
We started this conference.
Yeah.
Right? We started this conference. So we're not going anywhere until Ohio State decides to leave us. But anyways, thanks, guys.
I would say this, Greg, before you go, one thing we all want to keep in our minds that nothing is done until it's done. And if we know anything about college sports, especially football, until it's in a contract, there's no alliances that hold any water, and there's no special meetings you can have in a back room until you get something on paper. So that's what I'm going to continue to tell people is don't panic until it's time to panic.
Yeah, I think Moen is absolutely correct. This is really about it's trying to figure out things, trying to find consensus among two conferences, which is difficult between these two conferences. But it's also about the compensation model. That's what this is about. We were told that this afternoon. I think Moen is correct. ACC and the Big 12 are going to be having these maybe not the ACC. I don't know, guys. I'm going to take off before I.
Hey, Greg, before you go, could I ask a quick question of you? Or actually,
sure.
Could I ask you a question that a member asked us in chat to directly ask you?
Sure.
Edward Wayner, who's a member here, wanted to ask you if the SEC and Big shed non-additive members, and we've been talking about this with Ood about possibly happen. Could you see a P3, P4 all academic conference, like say Stanford, Cal, Northwestern, Duke, Vanderbilt, and Georgia Tech? Like, is that something you see should this all happen where maybe, the football powers all kind of merge up? Like, what would you see all the rest of us doing?
This
basically?
just happens to be Immaculate's idea that he's
Yeah.
given.
I know Immaculate.
I was going to ask
this idea,
but this is kind of different because I'm not saying that there's going to be a separation.
Well,
I don't care. I love the idea. I think it's cool. You should own it. That's all I'm saying.
Well, I don't think the SEC. First of all, I don't think the SEC and the Big Ten are going to shed. They're not additive members.
Right.
I think the only way the Buckeyes separate from Northwestern Wildcats if the Big Ten doesn't exist anymore. It fractures away. It goes. Ohio State goes into the Super League. The Big Ten is not going to be shit. These schools are so intertwined with so many ways. The cancer research, I know it's an athletic conference, but there's so much going on, guys. They're not going to be shut in these schools. But the old private school on the East Coast stuff, again, I know that's Immaculate's dream and Ivy League, whatever, Ivy League schools. But again, it goes down to student athletes or whatever you want to call them getting paid, right? And is that conference, that private school conference, will it generate enough?
Yeah.
Yes, to even compete with the Big 12 and the Big 10. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I don't even think Notre Dame would be interested because I don't think it would get the media, the media package. So,
well, and just let me be real quick on that. I don't think it is as a dream. I think of it as a nightmare because I think if those schools actually get that kind of access, we're all boned. So I'll just leave it at that because I think if they start throwing around NIL money and booster money at football, they're going to buy all of our players. I say that as a warning, not a dream.
Becky, go Huskies for you. Greg says, well, who becomes Minnesota head coach if Kelly leaves to the NFL?
Okay, well, this is a fine example of why everybody hates me or they dislike me. Eventually, you get upset with me. I posted a thread on Minnesota 247 a couple of days ago, and I laid it out. I said, I don't know, I can't remember the title of it, but it was something like, "This is something we don't have to worry about, probably."
Oh no.
But anyways, the scenario was, this was a few days ago, is Dan Quinn gets the job at Seattle, Washington.
Right.
And Chip Kelly leaves. And I went through there's been what I would call cross-pollination between certain people at UCLA and the agent at PJ Fleck. It's happened the last few years. Chip Kelly is hated by the boosters, UCLA, although Wasserman's given them some public pats on the back. But anyways, Chip Kelly cannot work in this environment anymore. He cannot. It just doesn't work for him. So he's trying to get an offensive coordinator position. If he leaves, I would be shocked if we see Pete Thamel's first tweet out there, when he lists the candidates. I would be shocked if PJ Fleck's name is not on that list.
That would suck.
And I will be blowing into a brown paper bag. It will be doomsday for Minnesota if they lose PJ Fleck to UCLA. It will be doomsday. Think about it. It's February what?
Second or third?
Second.
Right?
Whatever. We would lose Darius Taylor. It would be we'd be an 0-12 football team next year. Becky Go Huskies is trying to get me going with that question.
I mean,
it's doomsday. Doomsday.
You could bring Jerry Kill in, and I mean, he just beat Auburn. I mean, come on now.
It's I'm just praying that Kelly stays another year. And UCLA is very poor. They don't have much of an NIL. They're in debt. The athletic department. It's not like they're going to bring in a huge name, right?
And they have recruiting restrictions too. It's tough to recruit for UCLA.
Yeah, alimony as well.
Yeah.
But PJ Fleck and his wife, I'm just telling you, they love the big city. There's a lot of places that PJ Fleck won't go to. They love the big city. They love where they are, Minneapolis, right outside Minneapolis. He has been very attracted to the Los Angeles jobs. I'm just telling you, I'm very worried about it. Every Gopher fan should be worried about it. It could be doomsday for Minnesota. And I'll leave you with that.
There you
Thanks,
have it.
Greg. Appreciate
Thanks,
it. Have a
Greg.
good weekend.
Appreciate it, Greg. Thank you very much.
Take care.
Doomsday.
Doomsday.
The doomsday.
I want to thank Becky for giving us a super chat. Thank you very much,
Thank
Becky.
you,
Really
Becky.
appreciate it. Greg is fantastic, and I knew that question was coming at some point. But all right, you're getting ready to go. What do you want to leave everybody with as we go into this weekend?
Yeah, it's a lot to think about with this. The structure change. It seems like the P2, the SEC, and the Big Ten are kind of doing their own thing, breaking away, if you want to call it that, and kind of forming their own quasi alliance to dictate governance. That's kind of what the first thing that crossed my mind is is this going to be the future? Are there going to be more strategic meetings on deciding the governance of football and maybe even NCAA basketball right now in the future? So I think that is kind of just on the first part of what could happen here in the future and stuff. And it's disappointing that the Big 12 wasn't included in that, because I would have thought that Mark would have had a seat at that table too, to determine what's likely to be the change in the sport going forward. We'll see where it ends up as, but it kind of seems like Mark's going to have to bark a lot, or we're going to have to break open the ACC and stuff to have a seat at the table, Bomber.
I agree with you, and you and I are going to stay on the same page. We're going to do everything we can to advocate for our conference and our schools, so that's not going to change. Have a great weekend. It's great to see you.
Yep.
And are we still doing Denver next weekend? Are we doing
I think
that?
so. Yeah, I'll see if we can work that out. Okay.
All right. We'll see you later.
Take care, y'all.
Thanks, buddy.
Bye.
Take care.
Yeah.
All right. You'd actually stayed a half hour extra, so
Yeah.
we really want to appreciate him sticking around. Everybody, if you're new to the channel, we're an hour in. Please subscribe, follow us all on Twitter, turn on your notifications so you know when our show's on, and consider becoming a paying member of the Big 12 Mafia family. This will give you the instructions on how to go about doing that.
Become a member of Big 12 Mafia by going to our homepage and hitting the join button located next to the subscribe button in the upper right corner. There are several membership levels to choose from.
All right. Thank you again, Moen, for putting that together. All right. So we have talked, and Danielle Kelley is going to be joining us. We are going to talk a little FSU ACC when she gets here. There's a couple things I want to go over with her once she's with us. So I think before then, I want to bring up this next tweet that it was actually put out by Immaculate. And Immaculate, if you wouldn't mind running through. Oh, wait a sec. We got some gift memberships here. Go ahead, Moen.
Yeah, Coy gifted one membership to the channel, and that went to Christopher Counts. So Christopher Counts, please thank Coy in the chat for that. Give you some claps.
Thank you, Coy.
Thank you, Coy.
Winner.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Let me get that off. All right. So this is a tweet that Immaculate did as a response to an earlier tweet during the day. I'm going to let you run through this with everybody to walk them through it. And then it sort of explain what your thinking is here as we're talking about this SEC Big Ten and whatever these meetings are. I'm starting to call them in my head like an alignment meeting. They're trying to get on the same page. That's kind of how I'm going to start using that word, is it's an alignment, sort of a time that they want to try to get on the same page like you guys have both talked about. So let me bring up that
kind of feel like they're feeling each other out. They're just
right. All right, because they don't normally talk to each other. Let's be very clear.
No.
All right. There you go.
Yeah, this was actually before we even got the news. Someone on my feed that something came through. I thought it was a pretty cool post. If he wants to show it up there, he can. Don't mind showing them off either. But there were some parts in it where it was saying some things kind of definitively. And it was asking what people thought, if I remember right. So I just put in there what I thought. It's just kind of hiding it in an obscure little portion of X, and it kind of took off. But it's basically just me saying what I think is going to happen going forward. It's, whatever you want to call it, a prediction, an opinion, whatever. But this is kind of me just stating what I think is going to happen. And that's, the Big Ten is going to get FSU. One school will probably go with them, depending upon how the lawsuit plays out, what the cost of exit is. I think it's going to end up in a settlement here probably sooner rather than later. So, whoever you want to say that plus one is, if it's Miami, if it's Clemson, if it's GT, for those of you playing that game, you got a drink. Or, say what you want on that. That gets them to 20. The SEC, this one's going to cause people to disagree, and that's fine. And this is just where I'm at. It's that if the SEC wants to try and just get North Carolina and Virginia, then those schools are going to hold out. And once the Big Ten is ready to come look at them again, then the North Carolina Board of Governors is going to look at both offers and make UNC show the cost benefits for both. In the Big Ten, you're going to have more travel, but there's also probably going to be more money coming into the university from things like research and some of the other programs that they can participate in with the Big Ten. There's more sports there. So, North Carolina would have to drop some sports or figure out where they're going to move them to in order to join the SEC. So there's a lot that they're going to have to take a look at if this is a straight up decision between the two. So I think the SEC comes in and says, fine, we'll take Virginia Tech and North Carolina State too. And that ends it. And so those schools go to the SEC. No, I haven't figured out, what price that'll be at or how they work that out. That's not my job, really. It's just that's where I think they're going to be. So, and then the Big 12, as even Greg was saying, you come in right after that. The situation is different. Everyone's saying, oh, no ACC school will go to the Big 12. Well, once this has already happened, the value is going to be pretty different. And so I don't think it'll be that hard at all for the Big 12 to take their pick. And there's, probably 3 to 4 still very good public schools out of there. So, and then going down from there, I don't think any conferences are leaving the NCAA. They talked about doing that and threatened to do that back in 2014, and they got what they wanted for that. Now, in my opinion, what they're doing is they're trying to get more power with that. I actually have a picture that I was showing on a different post that we can go into later. But that's what I feel that they're doing. They're just threatening to leave or threatening to do all this so that way they get the ability to quickly make decisions because time is running out. House versus NCAA, which you'll see in the bottom here, if that comes in and they're not ready for it, you're talking about schools and conferences that will basically go under. They'll have to stop sports altogether. They can't afford billions and billions of dollars in loss and findings from a court on that. So they got to find a way to have the ability to make a settlement on that ahead of time. So that's all I'm saying is I don't think that there's going to be as much systemic change as people think because they've already got the mechanisms in place. They just need to fully empower them. It's like the autonomous conferences right now is a nuclear engine that they're trying to force to run on coal. It's meant to do everything very quickly. I don't know if you still have that picture to show to folks or not.
Which one?
The one that shows the NCAA Division I governance.
Yeah, you did that. Let me bring it up. Go ahead. I'll find it.
Yeah, because what you're going to see here is if I don't tell you where to look on the page for the autonomous mechanism on it, you won't even see it. It's
okay. Here it is. I'm trying to make it big so everybody can see it. There we go. There you go.
Yeah, now you can look through this whole thing. This is the legislative process for how they pass changes within the Division I.
Let me post that link really quick so everybody has access to it. Immaculate.
Because it wasn't too long ago.
There you go.
They changed it so that way each division kind of votes on their own things. It used to be if you wanted something to pass in Division I, you had to get Division II and Division III schools to vote on as well. Nothing happened. But this is the whole process basically that it goes through. I mean, you're looking through committees, your boards, then it has to go through a council, and then they basically vote on it, once a year. If you look down there on the very bottom, you'll see the autonomy system. and that is the autonomous conferences, and they have kind of a vote system worked out where it's each school gets one, and then the conference basically empowers 3 student athletes from their conference to also be votes on this to give the students a voice on it. They make a proposal, they vote on it. If it passes, it's approved and done. Like, that is all there is to it. It's made to make things quick so that you can respond quickly to stuff as it comes. This is what they need empowered, because you really can't see very well, but in that lower portion there, what it's saying is they can only do this on subjects that they have been empowered to do this with.
Yeah, I can't make that any bigger.
And
it's pretty small.
So the change that needs to be made is that they need to give them broader power. You know, this was given to them when they threatened to leave, just so that they could pass the stipends, the student athlete stipends. That's what they do. It's all about student athletes. So it's really right in the well of NIL. But that came along basically after this was already done. So it didn't have wording in there for NIL to give them power on it. It's really, it's kind of silly. So it wouldn't take much to do. And if they get this, a lot of these problems that they're having can get worked on real quick. But even before you have this power, you kind of have to know what you want to do. And that's where I think we are. They're all now just trying to figure out, okay, what are we going to do if they give us this power? As that's probably what the NCAA is asking, is let us know what you're going to do with it first, and then we'll do it. My thoughts. That's kind of where I'm at with this at this point in time.
All right, let me get this off here so we're not sharing. There's no reason to go through that. What I would do is I would encourage everybody who's watching this show that we didn't create this document. This is an official document about the governance. And what we're doing is providing it to you as a reference. I really would tell you it's a lot to get through. I'm not going to lie to you. But once you get in, you have a better understanding of how all these things overlap. When you hear big stories about the SEC and the Big Ten throwing their weight around and basically throwing everybody on the trash heap, it's not that simple. And this document, if you read it in the complexity that it has, you'll understand that. I don't know if we've got Doug Rohan still watching. Doug, if you're still watching and want to explain this a little bit more, feel free to send me a message and I'll bring you on. Danielle is I guess just tardy, so I was going to ask her about it. But regardless, this is a document that I've provided the link for. Encourage everybody to go look at it. And in future shows, we're going to refer back to this over and over and over again. So I want to make sure everybody understands that. All right, let me remove. How do you guys feel about doing some Q&A? Are you all right with that?
Let's do it.
We've got thousands now comments. And I want to just really encourage everybody, 150 people watching this live, another 10 or 15 on Twitter. I don't know how many on Instagram, but we've got a bunch of people watching, a lot of comments for us to try to manage. I'm going to get to as many as I can. I'm just going to let everybody know in precedence, we take super chats first, always. And then it goes to members. And then it'll go to general comments. So if you want your comment to be made and covered for sure, make it a super chat. Otherwise, just go ahead and you can become a member of the channel, and I'll try to grab it. Or, we'll go from there. Let's see here. So where did I want to start? I mean, there were so many at the beginning that I needed to make sure I marked them. Give me 1 second, guys. All right. Here's one from Jamie Thornton, one of our members. So it looks like 2 men are controlling college football. Will they try and break away from the NCAA and let the Big 12 and others follow? All good questions. Which one of you wants to take that?
Moen, I've been talking. You want to
go? All good questions, no good answers. This is literally just an agreement to talk. That is all we are at right now. Anything beyond that is presumptuous, and people can make huge assumptions and jump to things that this is the breakaway, this is a super league. It's just agreeing to put together a committee to talk. It's first date vibe, guys. First date vibe.
Anything else, Immaculate?
Yeah, I get why people are looking at it and kind of taking a couple steps forward. I mean, that's what we do. So I'm not going to blame anyone for doing the same thing and maybe come into a different position than I do or Moen does. But at this point, I'm just taking it, as they're saying right now, they're just getting together and talking. Now, when people of power talk, they start talking about something. Where the conversation goes from there, we don't know, and we may never know. And maybe some other thing will come out of it. That's possible. But do I think that they're trying to break away from the NCAA and wait for those fall? No, because I think if they really wanted to break away, it would have already happened by now. They were threatening that back in 2014. So I think they want to be in the NCAA and have their cake and eat it too.
And just so everybody knows, the NCAA really is only they're like the superstructure, right?
Mm-hmm.
To try to keep the organization all put together. But honestly, these conferences are getting to a point, especially autonomous conferences. You could easily see the autonomous conferences doing something on their own, but that would be 4 conferences right now. Depending on what happens with Florida State and the ACC, that's where the Big 12, I think, needs to get aggressive. But that's what we're talking about here. NCAA is the structure. They're not the ones that are going down and managing each individual conference. All right, next one from BR, one of our loyal members. Part of the problem is that the Big 12 media also buy into talking about our conference as a step down from the P2. I agree. There's a bunch of people that don't know how to do good PR. Everyone needs to act like we belong and work to close the gap. That's what I do. That's what you does. The people that I care about that are in the Big 12 that are creators, Coos is doing that. I know John Kurtz is doing that. So we're doing everything we can from a fan perspective to bring the profile up. But I think the Big 12 especially has had the biggest imposter syndrome of all the conferences. They were left out of the alliance. They don't have the power of the SEC. And so I think there was a bunch of that, especially with the previous conference commissioners. But Brett Yormark came in, busted that mirror. That's no longer the standard at the conference offices. Doesn't mean, though, that the imposter syndrome hasn't filtered down to all these schools that have been put down for many, many years. Kansas State, Iowa State, Texas Tech. And that's why you get a little of that imposter series. You guys want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I would say we haven't even seen a season with the new 4 teams from the West yet.
The last, yeah.
And if this happens with the ACC and you get 4 from over there, I mean, I would just say, come on, we don't really know what the true value of the Big 12 is. Like,
right.
This is it. I'm excited to see it. Like, honestly, I think that it might actually be a lot more valuable than it's been projected so far, because there is no model to match this right now. There's never been a conference without a hierarchy. So I think, some of the people who do the evaluating and setting up values for it, they just don't know. I think that it could be worth I was about ready to cuss, but a hell of a lot more than what, right now it's marked at 31.7. I think with the new 4, it's worth more than that. I think with the ACC, it's going to be worth more than that. So I would just say, like, I get it, man. People watching this going, oh, end of the world. But you don't even really know truly what the full value is of your conference. I mean, it's top to bottom going to be the most competitive conference. Maybe fans end up loving the hell out of that. And no matter if they actually follow other schools, they might still follow Big 12 football more. I flip back and forth between all the games. So, if the games are better and more competitive and across the board, I think that you're good.
We got Danielle has joined the show. Do you want to make a comment about that, Moen, before we get to Danielle?
No, I'm good. Go ahead.
Okay. Danielle, how are you doing? Can you hear me? Oh, she can't hear me.
Danielle.
Can you hear us? I'm not sure she can hear us. Well,
we can hear her. I can hear her mic, but
yeah,
I don't think she can hear us.
All's quiet on the Western Front, folks.
Yeah, I'm not sure where she's at. I just sent her a message, so for some reason she's not able to know that we're talking to her. She can't hear us, evidently.
Yeah, and she froze.
Oh, is her picture froze? All right, Let's just do that. Let's try this again. One more time.
And now.
We can now, yeah.
Yeah, there it is.
It's laggy. Can you guys
still
hear her?
lagging.
Nope, she froze.
It's still
again.
lagging, but hopefully
There
it'll
it is.
back up.
Why don't you reconnect? Maybe she.
Okay, let me try that real quick. I'm sorry, guys.
Okay. That's
No,
okay.
you're good.
Good.
All right. All
Another
right.
question. Now we're waiting.
Really quick. Let's get to another question. Let's go to OPD Don says the funny thing about being in an alliance with the Big Ten is that they always
here we
take
go.
one more of your schools, pack USC, UCLA, Washington, Oregon, the ACC, FSU, and who, and now the SEC. A&M? What do you think, Moen?
I got A&M. Phase 2, A&M.
No. Don't we get a fire back though at our boy Opie? Can't we say, well, wasn't the SEC in talks with the Big 12 when they took Texas and Oklahoma?
I
Good
think
sir.
they were, actually.
I think you know.
Bob Bowlesby was in the same room.
Yeah, I think careful. Glass houses, brother.
This was screwed up
But
decades ago by the Big
yeah, it's been pretty messy all along.
All right, let's go to another one. See, Chip Evans says, yes, it is. I hope FSU makes it into the big, or we're in the same boat. In a small way, you know how the Noles feel about being snubbed from the college football playoff. Yes, we know, Chip. Can you hear us now, Danielle?
I can hear y'all. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Better. Yep.
Much better.
Okay, I'm sorry. I apologize for that.
Oh, that's okay. So tell us how your day's gone. There's been a lot of stuff in the news. What do you know now that you didn't know yesterday?
Yeah.
What do you know now that you didn't know before?
What the Big
Danielle?
12 and the Big 10 and the SEC. That was a pretty huge. Huh?
Yeah. We're still having a
Can you
hard
hear
time hearing you.
It's still getting choppy.
I'm not sure. Try connecting without your picture. Like
All
turn
right,
your
let me
camera off.
see. All right, let me
Sometimes
do
the
that.
internet we'll get this.
You-
Technical issues happen to everybody. Can you hear us now?
I can hear you now.
Okay, counting 1, 2, 3.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
All right, that's great. We'll
Coming through a lot better.
lag a little bit. Okay, so Florida State and the ACC. What news has come out in the last couple of days you wanted to tell everybody about?
Well, Florida State responded to the motion to seal that the ACC filed to seal the contracts and the documents they're referring to this week, and it was a pretty big deal. You're really getting into the nitty gritty of the Sunshine Law and Public Records Law on this at this point, and that's the perfect thing that needed to happen. And so, yeah, Florida State's basically like, no, you can't do this, and we can't. I mean, there's no confidentiality in any of this anyway. We already know there's no confidentiality agreement. However, even the agreement between ESPN and the ACC, ESPN is basically alluding to the fact that they are subject to state laws. Florida is huge on public records laws. North Carolina is actually big at it too. Why they're trying to keep this secret tells all. Let's just put it that way. But Florida State's fighting back big time.
And from what we understand now, Florida State, they had this thing come up with the NIL collectives, and now we had Tennessee and these other sort of almost frivolous lawsuits that are coming from the NCAA about recruiting violations with the NIL. Is there any talk about them basically just ignoring the NCAA and saying, you know what, everybody else is doing it, so just take it?
I think we're getting to that point. I think we're absolutely getting to that point where what the SEC and the Big Ten did is kind of huge. It was a slap back saying, okay, if you're not going to fix this, we are. Like I've been explaining, the NCAA has built itself on a house of cards. Their inability to regulate anything, to do it consistently, to abide by the law that has already been passed. It's not going anywhere. And just keep nitpicking and trying to regulate backdoor ways around a system that no longer exists. Basically, the Supreme Court told them so. Is where we're at now. So the conferences are putting themselves in a position to deal with the fallout of that and take over if necessary.
I think that's really important that they stay on top of that, because it seems to me like the NCAA is basically flailing at this point. We know they're struggling. I'm going to bring up this page that basically is a list of 5 of the 6 things that they've been really worried about recently. And all these lawsuits are currently going. There's the $3 billion plus retroactive NIL, basically all the money that they want for profit sharing. Then they have their make athletes employees. they have their unionization, they have their unlimited transfer, they have the NIL deals for recruits. They want to be able to do those directly. And the last one was, and this came from Doug, he said whether the NCAA should exist at all.
Yeah.
I mean, it just seems like they just go from bad to worse, don't they?
Yeah, it does. And it just shows, I mean, with the slaps they've they took in Alston, O'Bannon, everything they've dealt with, that the system was here. Instead of developing a new system where they could comply with the law and recognize, like I said, they tried to go back to their old ways of regulating around using NIL, using the portal, using different rules, weird stuff. Under that, it still falls under antitrust. Antitrust is antitrust. And I keep comparing, honestly, the NCAA to what the ACC has done with FSU. That is a common theme in both lawsuits. You're going to keep hearing you can't do things this way. And so the NCAA, both of them have done it to themselves. I'm not surprised it's happening at all. It's about time as far as I'm concerned.
Moen or Immaculate, do you guys have a question for Danielle?
I don't know. You got anything, Moen, before I dive in?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Because Daniel and I have chatted a little bit through X over this, and just, I guess, maybe iterate what we were talking about to the folks so they're kind of be part of that, because I found it to be a very interesting conversation. And so I'll ask the question that I posed to you, and we'll go through it from there. So let's say, they're waiting for ESPN right now to comment. So the judges kind of held things up. What if they come back and say, don't worry, we don't require confidentiality anymore because we are not planning on re-upping the ACC's contract in 2027, so we don't care if this goes public. What do you think happens if that happens? And what do you think the odds are of ESPN deciding that they don't want to go through all this? Like, because there's cost to this. There's a lot of other things that could go wrong for them. And it's like, how does that go if this turns them off?
Honestly, it could absolutely happen. If you look, if they say, don't worry, we didn't require confidentiality, because it's a losing battle. Even if they did, Florida State was not a part of that. I mean, we're a part of it in the sense of media networks, but not in the part of a direct agreement with them. And we can't contract around our own state laws. Sunshine law, public records law is going to trump on that anyway. So we're going to get around the confidentiality part anyway. But to your point, what ESPN could do, and they very well may do, because remember, they got to the point where they were like, we're out on this Big 12 GOR, we're done. And they started contacting conference members about going to other conferences. And then cease and desist letters had to get issued. ESPN was trying to get out of it behind the scenes. This would be their out to go to court and say, hey, we want out of this, because the court is basically staying back and saying, we'll let ESPN say whether or not they want, to have their input on this.
Yeah, and ESPN has an option with the ACC to quit that they did not have with the Big 12.
Yes, they really do. I mean, an absolute option. Not to mention, they're out.
It's like pushing a button, and that's it. Like, oh, we're done. It's really quite wild. Like, I can't believe that it came out and we never knew anything about that. But
I agree.
Here's a super chat from Daniel Gygax. Thank you very much, Daniel. Appreciate it. Wouldn't ESPN have to also release the SEC contract details where University of Florida is also subject to the same laws? That is an interesting question.
Very interesting, because UF is a public university in the state of Florida, as Florida State is. If ESPN, the best thing ESPN can do right now would probably be to just, like Immaculate said, push that button and just end this now. Otherwise, you're going to get into the same deal. The only difference with that is I can't see. I mean, if somebody in the state of Florida could ask for those details of that contract, understandably. I mean, that's the right, and UF would have to provide them as well. However, that situation is much better. You're not going to have as many people asking for that. They don't have the Raycom baggage and everything. They've got the new SEC network with ESPN that, they were able to get, because they didn't have the problems we did with ESPN, Raycom, and the ACC all involved together. So Yeah, but overall, they would be subject to the same thing. And Florida State alone is setting a lot of precedent in a lot of areas on this, and it could come back to haunt a lot of people. That's why I'm surprised they have not settled and gotten out of this yet, except for the mass exodus potential, I guess, of the ACC.
Macular and Moen, do you guys want to comment on that?
I would say that there's probably was no private, backroom dealings that went against the conference or any reason to actually have to even go digging. I mean, they probably love their deal. I mean, you kind of have to have an impetus to want to go do that work to push in and stir it up a little bit. So,
but isn't it just a FOIA request? Couldn't anybody request that information, Danielle, in Florida?
Yeah, you can. Anybody can.
So you just have to be a Florida resident, I imagine.
But you would request that of Florida. Like, this is what was going on was the schools themselves were going to ESPN and trying to get that. You can't file a FOIA request on a private entity like ESPN. So you would be filing to UF
against Florida.
Florida,
but to Florida.
That's the point. And I said that the way this would come up is somebody's going to ask it of the university.
Right.
And it's going to fall under Florida Sunshine Law. You'll go to Florida State, and that's something Florida State is alleging, is saying we can't do our fiduciary responsibility. We can't, comply with public records laws in Florida because the ACC and ESPN are preventing us from doing so. I am completely floored that the ACC, I'm not, but I am, filed that in court in North Carolina fighting back against this. It is hilarious to me. You're taking away our ability to comply with law, and you're defending that position. It's insane.
Ryan Willie, $5, another super chat. He says, which conference poaches first, the SEC or the Big Ten? Poach SEC or Big Ten teams? I don't know. One's a question, one's a statement. I'm not sure I understand. Do you understand what he's saying there, guys?
I think he's saying, would the Big poach the SEC first, or would the SEC poach the Big first?
Oh, that's a great question. What do you think, Moen?
I think the Big would poach the SEC first, and they would take Texas A&M.
Immaculate.
Okay, I need this
question. So
no, we haven't. This is brand new. I got to think.
Okay, think about it. Give me a second.
I got to think about who from the Big Ten the SEC might go for.
Right. Who do you think, Danielle?
I think the Big. I agree with Moen. I think the Big would. I think the Big wants to establish that southern market where the SEC is, and it's a point I know Jen is raised as well. Getting Florida State is a big deal. I mean, if anybody, I'm born and raised in Tallahassee. We're North Florida, aka South Alabama, South Georgia. We're not just Florida.
Right.
You're getting into really big SEC territory in this area. So the fact that I can't say, it's known that we would go to the Big Ten, but it is known that we would go to the Big Ten. They would poach to get more SEC schools.
Do you have one in mind, you think?
I like what Moen said. I like the TMU option. I think TMU is miserable. Obviously, I mean, they had our former coach, so
they can't get away from Texas fast enough. I have been on the Texas A&M thing since Moen brought it up in the summer. So that's mine as well. What do you think, Immaculate?
Well, I think his is the obvious. I think the Big Ten would have a better chance at poaching just for university reasons, and it would probably be A&M or Missouri. I would list A&M first, but for division sakes later on, maybe Missouri. If I had to come up with one for the SEC, and Opie brought this up in chat when I was thinking at the same time and it said so. So I'm saying I think he's right. I think Opie is right in chat that it would be Nebraska. If they were to,
you're saying the SEC taking Nebraska?
Yeah.
Okay.
And they would go out of. Why would they go out of their their contiguity, their footprint? They would want a victory, and a big program to come down. And why would Nebraska want it? Probably for recruiting. But Nebraska's being pretty public about trying to get AAU again, so I don't think that they would say yes, but that's the one I would probably list as the most likely. Not that it's likely, right? Just most likely.
Conundrum, great question here, Conundrum. This is for you, Danielle. Shouldn't FSU also be suing ESPN?
Whew, I think, and I'm going to be honest with this, I think we have hinted enough at that, not only from what the Attorney General filed on her own, on her antitrust stuff, asking for conversations between ESPN and the college football playoff back in December, stuff like that. I think Florida State is now sufficiently alleging ESPN and Swofford and naming more direct names in this amended complaint that we can get to this point that it may happen. I think it's a very smart tactical move by Florida State because ESPN does not want to get involved in litigation. They are in control. I mean, I can't say they're in control, but they are part of our GOR. They're part of the SEC. They're part of everything. So Florida State absolutely could. And I don't think they want that baggage. I don't think they want to deal with that. I think they're looking at us like the ACC, like the problem child, like, let's just figure this out. Which is why what Immaculate is saying, maybe they just push that button and say this is over because they're not bound on the GOR really anyway. And they can just go into North Carolina court and say, hey, no confidentiality. We're fine. Y'all can do whatever y'all got to do. So I think we should. I agree with everything that's happened, especially with the Swofford Skipper description and the FSU complaint. Just familiar
that was
with
fantastic, by the way. That was awesome.
the swaying pine trees of North Carolina. Yeah, but we absolutely could. But I just don't. I think FSU. I think this is just a tactical move at this point to just let us go, just get us out. We're done. If they don't, I will tell you this: FSU has definitely shown on every level they are willing to fight all the way to the wall.
I know. I want them to do that so bad. I want this to go to the end.
We all do.
But I do from a viewer's perspective. I want to see what's going on under the curtains. You know what I mean?
Yep, we do. I mean, seriously, and eventually you'll get to the point, and that's part of the beauty of lawsuits. When you have two parties like this, you add them both and you let them start blaming each other. I mean, that's how you win lawsuits. Let me be honest. I'm just being real. You get if FSU did start suing ESPN, ESPN's going to start pointing the finger at the ACC. ACC is going to start pointing the finger at ESPN. A jury's watching it all. I'm sitting back with my hands behind my head, like, hey, I just won my case because y'all are fighting with each other.
Really quick, hang on, Immaculate. Let me do a new member gift here. Moen, why don't you tell everybody about this gift? Rock and Rant.
Yeah, Rock and Rant gifted another membership to the network, guys. Thank you so much, Rock and Rant. Joaquin Morales.
All-star.
Joaquin Morales was the one who received that. Make sure you thank Rock and Rant because Rock and Rant is
winner.
And he's saying right now, can't listen live, still at work, but cheating, reading text while I'm in a meeting. So he knows. Rock and Rant, we'd love to have you on the show sometime. So when you hear that, make sure you get a hold of me and Immaculate. Let's set something up. I'd love to have even just for a few minutes. All right, go ahead, Immaculate. You had a question.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't really think it's possible for FSU to sue ESPN. They're not actually in a direct relationship with ESPN. Am I off base on that, Daniel? What do you think?
Did we lose her?
She might have stepped away for a second.
I went out again.
Oh, you're back.
No, I went out again. I'm sorry. I'm back.
I was just saying, in terms of that question that was asked, and you probably answered a little bit, but I would say I just don't think it's possible for FSU to sue ESPN because they don't have a direct contractual relationship with them. And I think that these deals are kind of created that way on purpose. Like they have a relationship with the conference. And so, I mean, am I wrong in that? Would FSU ever have grounds to go after ESPN even though they don't actually have a direct relationship?
No, you're right, because there's not a direct contractual relationship. And that is also very clear in all the lawsuits. Now, with the Attorney General, with what she asked for on her own antitrust deal for the conversations between the college football playoff and ESPN, if some evidence showed up there, then yeah, that would be evidence that FSU could use to do something directly against them.
Okay, got you on that.
Couple more questions, then we're going to let Danielle go on a Friday night that I know she has been extremely busy this week. Edward Wayner, this is for you again, Danielle. If ESPN were to still want to extend the media deal past 2027, he's talking about the ACC media deal, wouldn't they demand a hefty media payout credit from the ACC, and meaning they get money back, or at least they don't have to pay out as much because they've lost Florida State? If so, wouldn't the ACC fight harder for a larger FSU exit fee. It's kind of a two-edged sword, right?
That's very detailed. If they wanted to extend, if they wanted to extend, I think they would demand a hefty media payout credit. I just don't see ESPN doing this right now. They've already had enough problems with Disney.
Right.
They've already had enough problems with finances anyway. They were even trying to sabotage the Big 12 at one point to get out of this. I just can't see them doing that. The ACC will probably fight harder for a larger FSU exit fee anyway. They did the same with Maryland. So I think that's going to happen anyway. If ESPN decides to extend that deal, it doesn't matter to us right now. We're saying the whole thing is invalid on its face anyway. So I think ACC, that would give them leverage to fight harder, most definitely. But I think Florida State is in it all in. So we're going to fight to the wall, like I said.
What do you think, Immaculate?
I think it's kind of the writings on the wall. I mean, I'm trying to look at this and go, maybe not. But I think ESPN probably already has made their decision. I know Moen has a question for her, but this kind of leads into something I've been following on the business side of things. Is, we saw Disney and ESPN, they were trying to sell parts, and the big two they're looking at were Apple and Amazon, and now Amazon's got a deal with Diamond Valley Sports. So I think that they might already have some agreements in the background that they have to attend to. So I think the ACC is kind of already lost on this. So no, I don't see anything that's going to take this past 2027.
Moen?
Yeah, Daniel, I had a question. I live in Ohio. We operate under sunshine laws as well. In Ohio, the state can actually mark things proprietary trade secret that prevents certain information from being released. Is that the same way in Florida?
Pretty much. I mean, you can. There are exceptions under the Sunshine Law that you can. There's a long list in the statute, huge long list. They can, but it's a hard battle to prove that, and it is in most states, honestly. Just like Ohio probably is on their case law. I know I had a case once where I had a corporation out of Arkansas that was claiming trade, and I had to fight back against that. It's kind of, you can, but it is a very, very hard battle. And plus, you're getting involved with a public university at this point who has a fiduciary obligation to provide business dealing contracts to the public if asked. And there is nothing in this that's a trade secret or proprietary under any of the exceptions that I've seen under the Sunshine Law whatsoever. It is a public record, and they need to turn it over.
Okay.
Do you have any questions for us, Danielle, before we let you off?
No, not really. I just love you guys. I always love coming on with you. It's so much fun. I'm sorry my Wi-Fi is acting up. I apologize. It's just one of those nights.
Your Wi-Fi's been busy all week long. We know.
Yeah,
You've been busy.
Hey, have a good weekend. Stay out of trouble, and we'll talk to you next week, okay?
All right. You guys take care. Thank you.
See you later.
Danielle.
Bye-bye.
Have a good night.
Thank you, Danielle.
Bye.
Give claps all around. Thanks so much. Oh, boy. Every time she's on, man, it's just more stuff we learn, right? So let's see here. Let's get to a few more comments as we sort of file through things that came up through all of our conversations over the last almost 2 hours now. See how many of these we can get through really quick. First one from BR says, part of the problem is that the Big 12 media. Oh, no, sorry. We already did that one. That's my bad. Let's see. Jamie Thornton says, sorry, but the job of Petiti and Sankey is to protect their conference. There is no way that not one single school would be left out. And in any league, you need bottom feeders. And just so we're very clear, Jamie, we've never said that any schools are going to get relegated out of the Big Ten or the SEC. That's never been a conversation. We've talked about it. We've tried to answer those questions. But as Moen has represented over and over again, that's just not something that's going to be happening to those schools. You heard Greg earlier. The Minnesota was a founding member of the Big Ten. They're not dropping out anytime soon. So I think that's just a bottom line.
They're
Do you guys want to add
grandfathered
anything
in.
to that?
They're grandfathered in.
Yeah, and this I saw this chat, and struck my eye when it came out, and that was kind of when we were talking with Oot. So, yeah, there's no one going to be being left behind. But I wasn't about to kind of throw that at Oot while we were in that conversation because we were all feeling how he was feeling. So,
well, I just want to be very clear. I was feeling the exact same way he was. So
and I get it.
It's extremely frustrating, and I don't understand at all. But we don't know about all these things all the time. Hey, Jen Knoll is in chat. Jen, if you want to join the show, I'm going to send you a link. You're welcome to join. You always are the life of the party. Let me post it here, or you could just listen, but just know you always have an open invite. Let's see here. Let's get to another comment. Yeah, we've talked about that. I don't think we need to beat that up anymore. Let's see here. Chip Evans says, welcome here, Chip. Yes, it is. I hope FSU makes it into the big, or we're in the same boat. In a small way, how Knowles feel about being snubbed from the CFP. I already did that one. You guys got to tell me when I've done these. I think I mark them off, and then nothing happens. Here's one from C. John. Number one, Big 12 survived and does have a seat at the CFP table. Number two, Big 12 Yormark must be outside the box, proactive with its future. Number three, major changes are coming: football, basketball employees, NCAA dismantling, and federal regulations, etc. What do you guys think about all those different points when we're talking about Big 12 survival?
I think you need to mention money first in every one of those. He has to have a spot. He has a seat at the CFP table. He has to make sure he can maximize the money from that. Yormark must be outside the box, proactive on making money. Football, basketball employees, dismantling Fed regulations, etc. Money. That's what Yormark needs to focus on right now. He needs to boost the profitability of the conference.
Immaculate, you want to add anything?
Yeah. Number one, very simple. I agree. I think the Big 12 has completely turned things around for themselves. We just got to, we're doing everything so quickly now that there's not enough time has even really passed for us to fully see the fruits of that labor. So I'd say, yeah, I think the Big 12 is in a good spot in terms of him being outside the box and being active with its future. One of the things I'll bring up, that this isn't exactly a new thing for the Big 12, but I think folks were expecting them to do all their big rivalries on rivalry week. And he's, instead of doing that, he's spreading them out to get the most money for his team. And as fans, people may not like it, but you got to understand, like, he's trying to get those schools as much as he can to keep that gap narrowed.
And you know what? Honestly, playing games on Thursdays and Fridays, different start times, like later games in the evening on Saturday nights. We're all just going to have to accept these things. If you're a Big 12 fan or even ACC fan, you need to accept a lot of these moderations, because the only way that they're going to really stay relevant is they are constantly in everybody's mind. And the Big 12 is synonymous with good football. So I think that's where that has to go. At the end of the day. Jen gave us $1.99, said happy Friday. Thank you so much, Jen, for that super chat. It's so good to see you. Yeah. And then we also have a gift, another membership. Why don't you talk us through this, Nolan?
Yes, thank you, Ryan Willie, for the gift. I accidentally closed my chat window, so I don't know who received that, but whoever received that, make sure you thank Ryan.
It was just Kareem.
All right, just Kareem. Make sure you thank Ryan. We thank you, Ryan. That makes you a
winner.
Nice.
And I got a proposition here.
Go ahead.
We've got some promo memberships to give away here this month. It's February. If we hit 200 viewers, we give away 5 memberships.
I love it. Let's
viewers.
Go. Let's go. It's like a telethon. Let's get as many people on here as we can, everybody.
Tell your friends on Twitter, if we get to 200, we're giving away memberships.
That's not that far away. We're already at 165. 35 people. Y'all know somebody. Have them join the show, and we'll give out 5 more memberships. All right, let's get to another question here. Don in Kansas, one of our members, says, what's becoming clear to me is that when OU and Texas announced they were SEC bound, that was supposed to be a kill shot to the Big 12. The powers that be didn't anticipate the Big 12's survival instinct. And I would add to that, hiring Brett Yormark was a coup times 10. He has completely changed the paradigm and how the Big 12 is currently looked at. You guys want to add anything to that?
I just want to speak up for the old UNI guy, Mr. Bowlesby. He was actually, and Yormark gives him the credit.
He does.
That he was the guy that brought in the 4 and then decided it was time to bring in a media guy, someone like Yormark that would know the future. So I go hand in hand, Yormark, Bowlesby. Bowlesby saved the conference, and Yormark is taking it to where it's got to go in the future. And it's in great hands, but it was absolutely a combination of those two men.
Very good. Jen responded, said, give me 2 minutes. So we'll have to see if she has time to join. Okay. That'd be great. Another comment here from Todd Boyle. If the Big 12 and ACC want to survive, they need to have a merger and pull in Notre Dame for more lucrative TV contract. Probably wouldn't be the 100 million plus deal, but 70 to 80 million per school, 16 to 20 teams total. I want to make one thing clear, Todd. We're not imagining that the two conferences fully merge. What we're picturing here is the ACC starts to be pulled apart, and just like with the Pac-12, the Big 12 takes the remaining best properties and incorporates them. That, I think, is what you're saying. You're getting to 16 to 20 teams. We're already 16 teams. So we either go with 4 or 8 more schools and go to a 20 or 24 team super conference. And if Notre Dame was to join, it's possible that goes up. We passed the 50 million mark. Who knows? But does anybody here believe Notre Dame is going to be joining the Big 12 anytime soon?
No, I think they're going to do their thing with the ACC, whatever that might be. Or if that doesn't work out, they'll join the Big 10.
Moen,
your voice.
We can't hear you if you're talking, Moen.
Sorry about that. I had to pop out the chat again. I think it's a good option for Notre Dame and for the Big 12 if they can make it work, but I just don't think they can make it work. Yeah. I think the noose is just closed in too much on Notre Dame, and they're going to have to make a decision. It's either join the Big 10 now or basically stay in the ACC, what's left of it, and kind of lose your relevance in football.
Boy, that would be – I can't even imagine that future. All right, let's move to another one. Jamie Thornton here says, nothing wrong with being upset and mad. Okay, Jamie, me and you are both in that category. I love the Big 12, but we all know any Big 12 school would take an open call to the Big or SEC today. There's no doubt about it, and I don't think anybody here disagrees with you. Of course, anybody would take an invite. It's not about the Big 12 being it's pretty much about the Big 12 being the best of the rest, frankly. That's what it comes down to. And now we have Jen has joined the chat. How are we doing, Jen?
Hey, how are you guys?
Good.
How you doing?
Your voice sounds tired.
It's been a long week, I guess.
So tell us what's going on. What's going on at Renegade Report?
Oh, just we've kind of had some quieter shows, I think, this week. I think there's just so much going on. Everybody's so busy, and we George and I just decided to make it just us two, maybe for a couple episodes. We had Chip Westerly on. He was on Sporadics a lot. He came on with us tonight. We kind of talked about movies. I mean, it was just kind of
it's a Friday.
Yeah, it's a Friday, why not?
Yeah, so, luckily for you guys, you don't have to worry about FSU being like the big angry story anymore. Now everyone gets to get angry at us in the Big 10.
Yeah, I mean, we're used to being the ones who, everybody hates. And we don't mind being the villain. It's just sometimes, it's nice to take a break. It's nice to take a break.
Right. Do you have any questions for us? There was big news, obviously, that broke about the SEC and the Big 10. We all believe FSU is going to be in that room, so we're not worried about you guys. But what do you think about the organization as a whole and kind of how things are looking from your angle?
Well, so, I mean, for me, I think this news was more about just making sure that the Big 10 and the SEC didn't, try and outmatch each other. They're going to outmatch the Big 12. They're going to outmatch the ACC, right? But they didn't just want to have to continue to keep outmatching each other. I think that's what this is about. And again, maybe I've just not paid attention enough to it today, but it doesn't seem like it's like the end of the world as far as I'm concerned. Because you kind of knew this was going to happen, right? I mean, they were going to get together and talk at some point.
Right.
We thought so. I mean, with the
Yeah.
Big Ten and the SEC, it's a pretty big deal that they actually are.
Yeah. Oh no, I mean it's a huge deal. I just don't think it's I don't think it's the breakaway from the NCAA that some people think that this conversation.
Yeah,
is
we
gonna
don't
be.
think so either.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just
Yeah, we don't think
it's
so.
one of the. I remember Petiti's interview with Joel Klatt when he first came in, and one of the things he said that he was told by folks with the conference and with the schools when he came in. One advice was figure out how to make good with the SEC and with Sankey because we've never had a good relationship. And he said that that was one of his top priorities, if it's not his top priority. So it's taken since he came on this long for them to actually have any kind of movement in that relationship. That's how bad it was.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Jen. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say I think this is probably something that should have happened. It was going to happen. I just don't think it's like the end of say like the Big 12 or the ACC. Like some people may think it is. I think the end of the ACC is coming.
Yeah,
But
they're in different places for sure.
Yeah, I think they're in definitely different places because the Big 12, while they lost what would be their Clemson and Florida State, right, with Oklahoma and Texas, they actually added with very nice pieces. They made themselves very attractive. The ACC decided, hey, Cal, Stanford, come on down.
Not exactly the same thing.
You don't like SMU? I mean, that's Dallas, right? They own Dallas.
I actually I kind of like the SMU ad, especially when they're not getting paid. I like it. They're a football oriented program. Look. I think it's a nice ad. I really do. I'm really not trying to go down on SMU. I know they've been so ruined and God, they have to come back from the dead and they're stuck in this ACC. I mean, can you imagine like all the crawling and clawing you did to just get back from that death penalty and now you're stuck in the ACC? I just can't imagine. I mean, that's like wear a cup every day because you're going to get kicked in the nuts.
I've been in my head making a joke thinking that once ESPN drops the contract in 27 from the ACC, I think Raycom's positioned perfectly to take that contract up, don't you?
I guess if you live in a crappy apartment and the only thing you get is Raycom. That's what Raycom reminds me of is, like those old college like apartments, where like you had one cable network that would allow you to like hook up to it. That's what Raycom is.
Right. Okay. Sorry. I couldn't resist that joke. Hector Estrada, thanks for being here, Hector. And really quick, let me take one last chance to tell everybody, if you're watching the show, make sure you subscribe, give us a thumbs up, turn on your notifications so you know when our next show is around, and then follow everybody on Twitter so that you know when they're posting and kind of follow and track the news as we give it. We don't give it to you, but we take the information and we'll pass it on. Hector Estrada says Boston College, Wake, and most of those ACC teams are cowards. They are the losers hoping for someone to lead the way. And I'm going to say, thank God FSU is willing to tell everyone you're with us or against us, and then it dropped off. What do you say to that, Jen?
Well, I mean, I think Boston College, Wake, and most of those other ACC. I mean, I technically agree they are losers. But it's not because of the reason that they won't join Florida State. I think the reason they don't join Florida State is because they don't have anywhere else to go. And they're living off the welfare that is Florida State and Clemson. And so they're fine with the arrangement. They don't care. Now, will the new information about how much Notre Dame was getting paid affect them? Possibly. So yeah, I guess you could thank Florida State for bringing that out to light because from what everybody was told, they were not going to get paid for playing football. And now we find out they were.
Yeah.
And the ACC actually could keep Florida State by giving them that 15 to 18% that they earn for the revenue in the conference by just not paying Notre Dame what they paid Notre Dame and paying it to Florida State.
Well, let's just imagine a future or a past where they didn't join the ACC in a scheduling arrangement. They did that for a reason. They had to play some games that wasn't Navy and Air Force and, other schools. So they had to play somebody. So the scheduling agreement by itself was fine until you found out they're a full voting member and they could tell everybody else what to do. So,
yep.
You guys have any, Moen or Immaculate, any comments on this?
I mean, it's pretty, heavy words there. Like, I get it. What people, are looking at it and saying FSU kind of did everyone else a favor, but there are some schools that are kind of getting stuck behind where I would definitely say they're not. I'm not. When self-preservation comes in, I don't know if I would call them cowards. It's just their situation is their situation.
Yeah.
Like, there's only so much they can do. When you're Boston College, your own town doesn't give a damn about you. Like, there's not much they can do. You're Wake Forest. You have 3,000 people who go to your school. Like, and you're surrounded by these North Carolina schools that are larger, bigger, more with more notoriety. I don't know what they could do other than just kind of hope for the best, really.
Moen?
Yeah, hope for the best. That's not really going to work out real well for them.
I'm not saying it's working out well for them.
Yeah.
That's a good betting.
What are they supposed to do?
Told in Vegas. Hope for
They
the
can
best.
shit in one hand and hope for the best in the other. See
Yeah.
which one gets filled first.
All right. So no more comments. Okay, I'll take that. Jamie Thornton says, I think ESPN wants to keep Tobacco Road without a doubt. I think they will also push for UNC, North Carolina State to the SEC, and Duke to the Big 12. ESPN wants to keep UNC Duke basketball. They have the media for, and I don't know what the rest of you is going to say. Both. For both. What do you guys think about that?
It's not a bad theory. I mean,
yeah,
I think ESPN, we saw them make direct payments to Texas and Oklahoma. So if anyone's thinking they can't get involved, well, they're finding ways to do so. I know we've listened with Moen and his market allocation talk, and I find that very intriguing, and maybe that comes up. But if the Big Ten gets something first, then I think that argument probably comes weaker, and that's when ESPN can probably do some work to do some payments or whatever they got to do, whatever they want to do. I don't know where they want schools to be. I just don't think that they really want to do the ACC anymore. It's too many contracts, too much juggling. I think they'd rather just work with 2 conferences rather than 3. So, I think they're going to do something. We'll see what they do.
So I actually like this theory here because I don't see ESPN wanting to give up on Duke basketball. Look, they're not going to do that. They're not going to do that. So I kind of like that theory of Duke going to the Big 12 and then ESPN focusing maybe on basketball with the Big 12 a little bit more. I still don't see them giving up on the ACC because of basketball. So again,
but at a lower rate, right? Not at the same
at a lower rate for sure.
Yeah.
But they love them some Duke basketball. ESPN fully believes that basketball makes money.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Moen?
Possibility. I just don't see Duke agreeing to go to the Big 12.
They may not have a choice.
They might not have
a choice. They always have a choice. They could say, no, we'll be independent.
But absolutely. That's true.
We'll drop football and just be basketball only and call it independent like UConn.
Don't be surprised about that. I don't want to call it arrogance or ego or anything like that, but just that private school mentality of, no, we don't want to be part of that. It's different than the big public schools, which, have a different mission and whatnot. So, I have a hard time seeing Duke to the Big 12 in anything, but if ESPN really wanted that and was willing to help make it happen, then maybe it could.
There's a really interesting comment. And Dennis, I want to encourage you. Could you send me a DM on Twitter I would really like to talk to you more about your education behind this comment. I think it's a really big deal, and I'd like to pursue it a little bit further, but I'll read it here really quick for everybody else. Dennis Hattie says, conference payments to member institutions is public information, as athletic conferences are nonprofits and must file an annual 990 form. Now, do you guys know what the 990 form is?
The 990 form is for nonprofit organizations, but now private institutions do not fall under the 990 form.
Okay. So like BYU wouldn't have to file that form.
No,
I've never heard of it.
Not that I mean, unless I'm I do taxes for a living. I'm just saying the 990 form is, I don't think that applies to the private institutions in the conference.
Okay. Okay.
What I think he's saying though is he's talking about the whole payment that comes from the network to the conferences, not the divided out portions to each school. Like,
right,
you would know how much is getting paid to the conference, but I agree with her. I don't know if you could actually find out how much is paid out to a private school.
You technically, you really cannot, unless they are under an audit, and then you can actually submit a FOIA request for those documents if they are being audited, if it's a private university.
Moen, do you know anything about this particular item? No, you're on mute again. Well, we can't hear you.
Sorry about that. I was doing something on the back end. I said I pay my taxes on time. That's as far as we're gonna go.
All right. Well,
I agree. I'm not getting it. Nope, I'm not getting involved in that. I pay my taxes too. I've already filed my tax returns. I'm good. I'm all up to date.
Jen, I didn't know you were a tax attorney. I could talk to you about taxes. I'm just glad to know that you do that.
I'm not an attorney. I do
teasing,
taxes.
and I was teasing.
Oh, okay.
Well, Dennis, I'm curious. I want more information about this 990. Obviously, Jen knows a little bit about it because she does taxes as well. But if you wouldn't mind sending me a DM on Twitter, I'd like to ask you a couple questions about it after the show. That would be great. If not, that's cool too. I understand. Let's get to a few more comments here, guys. Since we've been so freaking busy. Tempest says ACC should have got Oklahoma State, Kansas, be a basketball powerhouse with UNC and Duke and Iowa State. Plus, they should have taken Washington State and Oregon State. With what money? Tempest, I don't know. Where's the money to pay to get Oklahoma State, Kansas, and Iowa State? The ACC makes less money. Why would they do that?
It would have been a pretty heavy-duty move to do, considering what all they had to do just to get Stanford and California.
Right.
I don't know if you could get 4 schools in there. Like
those powerhouses brought in a lot more money.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe ESPN would have said we'll pay more for those if they'd be willing to come. But remember, ESPN just did a deal with the Big 12, so they probably weren't trying to help tear apart the conference that they just signed a deal with. So, I mean, I get the idea, though. I get the strategy.
Moen, any comments on that one?
Yeah, I don't think it's even remotely possible. They should have added Oregon State and Washington State, though. I agree with that.
I agree with that. Yeah, I agree. Jamie Thornton says the SEC now with FSU is off the board, is all on UNC. Sorry, I can't talk. They want UNC. They might get forced into North Carolina State, but like Virginia and Kansas, that's honestly about it for the SEC. Yeah, you're talking. They're not going to go more than 4, and probably they only want 2.
Mm-hmm.
What do you guys think about that?
I think if they have to go 4, it's going to be Virginia Tech, and North Carolina State. If they have to go 4, that's the 4 I can see them taking.
You guys?
Yeah, I mean, I get it. Like, I've put out there what I think, and I totally understand why SEC fans are saying, nope, that's not what we want. And I know Jamie's got her sources, and they're saying otherwise, and I get that too. I said, I think the SEC wouldn't want all 4 in North Carolina and Virginia. When I say that I think they're going to end up with all 4, it's because of the way I think it's all going to play out. They will do that, because if they do not take North Carolina in this very first run here, the Big Ten's coming back. The Big Ten will come back for them, and if they have to take Virginia with them, they will. If that means going to 22, fine. So I just don't think the SEC wants to fight big, heads up on that. And when she's talking about Kansas, and she's talking about in chat here a little bit more later, that's intriguing to me because I can see it, the rivalry with Missouri, but also it's a spot that the Big Ten has looked for in the future, and it's kind of tabbed as in the future. So it's from a strategic play, it makes sense to maybe say, yeah, if you keep going after this over here, we might take that one over there because you can only do so much at a time. So, we're getting a little bit of a tit for tat looking at each other's the same things. If they're both looking at UNC and Kansas, that gets a little interesting.
Moen?
Yeah, I think if anything, they take North Carolina and Virginia. I think that those states are going to buckle. I think they're going to buckle, and they're going to fold and just say, okay, as long as we can get 2 of them into the SEC, the other ones will let them figure themselves out.
Jen?
I can see Virginia buckling, but I don't see North Carolina buckling right now. I don't. I think that legislature is way too controlled by an NC State people. And I'm not saying that they are too blinded by their biases to, make a fair decision, but I can see NC State fitting in very well in the SEC, and I could see the SEC being absolutely 100% fine with NC State. Now, where I can see it going down would be Virginia and Virginia Tech. I don't think Virginia and Virginia Tech are as tight in as North Carolina and North Carolina State are as of today because of that new decision that happened,
Right.
So I think I'm sorry. I'm going to stick to it. I think the SEC takes those 4. That's what I think.
That was what Immaculate's original idea was, that they would all 4 go. I think they only want 2.
Yeah.
And the
I
SEC,
know that.
I think the SEC holds their ground. I don't think they take them with North Carolina State. That's my guess. It's all or nothing.
I kind of hope so too, as a Big Ten.
Yeah.
I hope they do, because then the Big Ten could come back and try and go for North Carolina.
They can get North Carolina, but I don't think anybody wants. I don't think NC State is wanted by either of them.
No, I think if that happens, NC State and Virginia Tech are probably Big 12. So, as a Big 12 guy, you should love that idea,
right?
Okay, so are you saying that the North Carolina, Board of Trustees will not allow them to leave to go to the SEC or the Big Ten without NC State?
No.
Yeah. If they don't get what right now, the way they're acting, if they don't go, both get the same consideration. One goes to the Big Ten, one goes to the SEC, or both of them go to one of them. They're not going to break apart. That's what I'm saying. You don't think UNC buckles.
So how does that work then?
I just think Virginia goes to the SEC.
On that regard, I'm with Moen. I think eventually they will cave on that.
Yeah.
But I don't think they're going to hold down.
I think right now they're like, well, we need to first try to get North Carolina State to go with them. But later on, when it comes down to, the SEC and the Big Ten are both just sniffing for UNC and that's it, that's when they come in and they compare the 2 options and say, this is the cost for being in this one, the cost for being in that one. These are the benefits for being in this one. These are the benefits for being in that one. That's what they're actually saying, in my opinion, is they're going to not let UNC just go to one without them comparing the 2 choices. So I do think they're being controlled. I don't think it's necessarily 100% North Carolina State has to be with them. That's just the play right now to the SEC to say, hey, if you want these guys before the Big Ten's ready, you got to take both as a package.
Really quick, before we answer this question, Moen's got something to do. Moen.
We're giving away 5 memberships, guys. So here you go.
5 memberships. Grab them while you can.
Grab them while you can. See who gets them.
Let's see who gets them really quick. There we go. There's the gift membership message. Let's get it.
B. Zoe Zuki. Mick Stevens. Selena Rodriguez. D's Future Recruit Talk. You are now members of the Big 12 Mafia family.
I love it. Thank you so much. And appreciate everybody being here tonight. It's been a big night. And we want to thank Jen for coming on. We got a couple more questions. We're going to get out of here. Jen, you asked this question back to him, but basically Jack is saying SEC taking 2 according to FSU sources. That surprised me. Do you know?
I haven't heard that.
Okay.
I have not heard that in any way. I don't see it 2 unless we're just talking about North Carolina State and North Carolina.
Okay.
That would be settled upon. I do not think the SEC and Florida State are in any way, shape, or form discussing anything right now.
Okay.
So as far as the SEC playing defense for Florida State, that ain't happening right now. I think it was happening about 2 weeks ago. I don't think it's happening right now.
We got a reply from Terry Kane, who evidently knows a little bit about this too. Says the Internal Revenue Service requires all private universities and public charitable foundations that support public universities to submit an IRS Form 990 each year. That's what Jen was just explaining to everybody, what that is. The question is, how much can the public look into those documents, right?
For the 990s for a private institution, they do not have to release those. The only way you have to release those is if a board member on your private institution requests it and you receive that majority vote to get that released. And most don't. Let's be real. Most don't. They don't want any of that stuff released. So you can see it all day with public universities. You can submit a FOIA. You can do all the things, but with privates, no.
Here's a comment. Two comments left, and then we're done. I swear we're going to get out of here. MH5 says basketball can make money if the conferences take over the basketball postseason tournament. Basketball isn't as bad as football in championship game inclusion, but basketball, much like football, has teams that overrepresenting the championship games. Kansas, Duke, Kentucky, UConn, and UNC. What do you guys think about that premise?
First things first, expert usage of emojis. That's all. I'll go ahead and let these guys go. But you got so much more into that comment because you use those emojis. I'm impressed.
Absolutely right. Jen, do you have any thoughts on that?
Look, I think if basketball made the money that football does, we would see totally different conference realignment. Okay. It just doesn't. It really doesn't. It doesn't in the TV markets, and it doesn't in ticket sales. It just doesn't. Now, is basketball popular at a lot of schools? Abso-freaking-lutely it is. Is it more popular at other schools? Sure. And do some schools make money off of it? Yes. But the fact is, in conference play, basketball, if it was the moneymaker, Gonzaga would be in a conference. That's all I can say about that right now.
You're right. Mullen.
Yeah, I'd like to see the NCAA continue to host the basketball tournament. I think that that makes the most sense.
That's their.
I mean, they have to because they have to because otherwise it won't get done because moneymakers aren't going to put the work in on it because it doesn't bring in the money that football does. Let's just be real. Yeah. It'll get watered down. It'll get worse off. We kind of need that for basketball. I mean, that's just me.
Immaculate.
I think the basketball tournament is going to continue to be a leverage point. But I've always hoped that it stays with the NCAA, and I think that's where it's going to end up being. But it is also where a lot of the voting members of the NCAA are most vulnerable. So don't be surprised if you see some threats coming up in the future should things not be easily agreed upon where they're talking about taking away basketball. But I think it's mostly just threats. In terms of the value of it, I'm kind of leaning with Youngermark, and hopefully he sees something here. I think that the value of basketball in the future will go up. I think with NIL, I think college basketball is going to get actually a lot better. You can boost your team much better with like one or two guys in basketball than you can in football. So that money is going to have a huge difference there. I mean, guys, instead of leaving after a year in college, they might stick around. You might be seeing the quality of basketball in the college ranks go up considerably.
I think what they've missed is marketing.
Yeah.
Basically, for how many years? 40 years, they've been selling the tournament as a standalone entity. They should have been building up the season. Who watches college basketball before February 18th or even March 3rd? One. Jen does. And I've been watching BYU because they're good this year, but not many watch during the season.
Ohio State doesn't even have a basketball team.
There you go. See?
Don't
So
even look.
What that tells you is the perception is not there for that. And
I love basketball. Come on. Basketball is so fun. And I hate saying that they don't really make any money. They just don't, not for the universities. Now, the NCAA and that tournament does make money, and those universities do get paid out, guys. I do understand how that works. I'm just saying that the sport itself is not the moneymaker for ESPN, for Fox, for any of these networks. That's why you see basketball games on like Bally's. I mean, and Miami football games. But like nobody watches them. Not really. Not on the TV. Not right now. Until February, March, April hits, nobody watches. And that's just the truth. And I'm not trying to be mean. It is what it is. I'm the only loser who sits at home on a Friday night and watches college basketball. I watch college baseball too. Okay, by the way.
We're all losers, Jen. You're here with us. So
I love it. I watch college baseball. I watch college basketball. I absolutely do. I'm just saying, like, not many people do that.
No.
You know? So football is the driver. Football is what you need. Football is what you want. And so the Big 12 right now in basketball is the best conference. Right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's got to be making like ESPN sick because, you know, Duke and North Carolina, nobody cares.
And that's one reason why I think the Big 12 has staying power is because they're contracted with both, right? Fox is trying to get into basketball too. So I think the Big 12, look, everybody's saying doom and gloom tonight. Let's just sort of wrap this show up. The news that came out today about the organization of the Big Ten and the SEC getting together and having a meeting to talk does not mean the end of the world, okay? Yeah. If you're new to the channel, 175, 180 people watching us live, please subscribe and just follow all of us on Twitter because we will tell you what's being reported. We won't tell you what to think, but we'll definitely give you the information so you can make your own mind up. And right now, the sky is not falling, okay? These conferences are powerful because they have the most money, but that doesn't mean they can't give themselves kingly rights. They still have to work within an organization that involves a lot more schools than those. What is it? 18 and 16. It's not even 80. It's not even 40 schools that are saying they have. They say they might have control. No, we don't believe that's true. So we want everybody to keep your head on a swivel, as Greg says. And just pay attention to the news as it's coming out because there's a lot more to what is going on than just, oh, by the way, it's P2 and everybody else is screwed. That's simply not the truth. Jen, I'm going to give you a second. Tell everybody we find you and what you do. Why are you here tonight with us?
Well, because I like you guys. Y'all are all very handsome. And as a single woman, you know, I love like talking to these handsome men at night, you know, on a Friday. I don't get to go anywhere. I don't get invited out anywhere. So you know, it's giving me life. It's giving me a little life. So thank you guys for giving this woman a chance not to watch the ID channel for a little bit more on a Friday night.
That's right. No, what happened live, Jen? You gotta watch what happened live.
I'm sorry. You know I watch what happens live. Okay.
I know you do. It's the best.
It is the best. Okay, so by the way, Nathan and I are big Vanderpump Rules fans.
We are.
Okay.
Yes, I admit it.
I'm gonna throw him out there under the bus.
Thank you very much. That'll help my.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So what am I going to do tonight? I'm actually, or what am I got coming? Oh, the Renegade Report. We've got Sunday. We have 2 high school coaches that coached. Oh God, Coco. I cannot say his name right in Polynesian. I'm too Southern to do it. Coco, who just committed to Florida State. He came from Oregon State. His high school coach. He's a defensive end. He's going to be on the Renegade Report on Sunday. And let's see. I think Tuesday it'll just be me and George. We'll see. Maybe some things will change.
Did you have a chance to talk with him about what we want to talk about and do?
Not yet.
Okay. Will you do that?
He
this
had
weekend?
kidney stones.
Oh,
He had
okay. Well, that's
that hurt.
priority number one. So
Yeah.
once I'm looking forward to that chat though. Let him know I want to do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Immaculate. Tell everybody the sky's not falling. You don't have to jump off a bridge.
The sky is definitely not falling, and please do not jump off a bridge. We do enjoy having you here. You can see here at Immaculate View on X. I will give you my opinions, and I will tell you that I think you should agree with them, but I'll also give you sources as to why, and for you to make up your own minds. And if you have a different thought as us here, we absolutely do not mind if you disagree with us quite vehemently. So thanks everyone for coming in. We had some big numbers tonight, a lot of fun, and look forward to the next one as always.
Fun is the number one goal. I don't care about the rest of it. Moen.
Sunday, Moan After Dark, 8 p.m. with this maniac down here.
Be there.
Be there.
That's right. And then next Tuesday, we'll have another one of these shows on Tuesday night at 8 Eastern. We want to invite everybody to have a great weekend. Stay out of trouble. Definitely kiss your loved ones and have some time with your families this weekend. It's really important.
One more.
Thank you so
much.
One more.
Hold on.
Well, go.
R.I.P. Carl Weathers. You're up there with that stew bone. You got a stew going on now.
I forgot about that. Yeah, rip Carl Weathers, obviously from Rocky and Mandalorian, and I love
Arrested Development.
And Mike Martin from Florida State.
Oh, that's right, the coach, the baseball coach at Florida State. I forgot about that as well. Yeah, it sucks when cool people pass on.
I know. He was so
It really
fun.
does. Well, thanks everybody. Appreciate your time. Everybody, thank you very much for contributing to this show. We wouldn't be doing it without you. And give us those comments and suggestions. Make sure you subscribe, follow us all on Twitter. And that'll be it. Everybody have a great weekend. We'll talk to you later. Peace out.